Good evening. Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education, March 10th, 2021. Will everyone please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A reading of our mission statement. We are committed to academic achievement and success for all students in a safe environment. In partnership with families and our community, our mission is to promote confidence, inspire a passion for learning, and to prepare our students to become responsible global citizens. May I have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to make two notes. Ms. Wong is running a few minutes late, so she'll be here momentarily. I believe Mr. Siriello is running a few moments late, and he will be here momentarily. And Mr. Don Beeler is joining us virtually this evening, so he is listening on the Chromebook here. Questions and comments from interested citizens. We have 3 speakers this evening in person. I'd just like to remind everybody that this comments are for 3 minutes each. When you come up to the podium after I call your name and then you exit, please just give a moment for the next speaker to come up because they will be cleaning it in between each speaker. So we'll start with Tony Cardone is speaking in regards to outdoor sporting events.
Thank you, Cabinet and board members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I did want to make one comment. A lot of what has been in the news regarding the athletic field, I find extremely disappointing that people are putting numbers out there for the damage estimates between $500,000 and $2 million. And I want to say I've spoken to a couple people, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but those numbers are absolutely absurd. Nowhere near that, and I hope that there's a fix to it shortly. But thank you for everything you've been doing on it. I just want to speak tonight about Monroe's commitment to excellence and its sportsmanship over the years. We've won various sportsmanship awards. We've also had a commitment to excellence here in the district, and the fact that numerous times a year during the fall and during the spring, people have come up to me when I'm at a football game or when I'm at another athletic contest and say how great the sportsmanship is with respect to all the teams at Monroe, girls, boys, doesn't matter what sport it is. I have received a few calls in the previous 2 weeks from parents from our neighboring communities asking why they are not allowed to attend outdoor events. I was at a meeting yesterday with our Department of Health Commissioner, Dr. Gelman, and I specifically asked her what the issue is with that. And she said there's no county guideline or prohibition from visitors coming, especially if the home team is available to be present as far as the parents go. Monroe-Woodbury has always been great neighbors and leaders, and I'm here tonight to ask that you approve the visiting teams that will be attending any outdoor functions, that their parents be allowed to attend those games. I just don't see any justification, and if someone could give me justification tonight why that is, then I'll be okay with it. But right now, there is no guideline that says a home team can be here or a visiting team can be here. And I'm sure that if there's logistics involved with it, seeing how great our school district is, that something could be done to accommodate them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker is Kevin Williams in regards to the elimination of dedicated honor sections.
Good evening. I'm the parent of a class of 2020 graduate, a Monroe-Woodbury High School sophomore, and a middle school 8th grader. I recently wrote a letter to Superintendent Rodriguez voicing my objection to the plans to eliminate dedicated honors sections and allowing open enrollment in AP courses. Superintendent Rodriguez and Dr. Hassler reached out to me, and we spoke earlier today regarding my concerns, and I thank them for that discussion. My hope is that the recent decisions are reconsidered and ultimately reversed. Looking first at offering only general courses with enrichment opportunities available for honors credit to those students that want to challenge themselves with more rigorous material. Within this new general class, teachers will instruct general topics, but specific material to illustrate those topics will differ from student to student based on level of difficulty. For instance, a teacher will cover poetry, but half the students will apply those lessons to general level poems A, B, and C, while half the students will apply the lessons to honors level poems D, E, and F. This arrangement denies all students in the class from engaging in meaningful discussion and examination of the literary pieces as a whole class. It denies students the pride which comes from working hard and being accepted into an honors class with demanding minimum standards. In Principal Casty's email, he indicated that the elimination of dedicated honors sections was in order to increase, quote, equity and success by providing opportunities for enrichment for all, end quote. What is meant by equity? What is the measure used that reveals the current existence of inequity? Prior to this decision being made, haven't all students been given an equal opportunity to qualify for and be accepted into honors courses? Haven't all students been required to have the same minimum GPA and test scores to gain admittance into honors courses? Moving on, all students will be able to register for AP English and History courses. I'm concerned that some students are being set up for failure by eliminating minimum standards for enrollment, which would indicate sufficient preparation for success. Superintendent Rodriguez explained that the rationale was to ensure fairness to students that would most likely succeed in the AP courses but were just below the minimum required GPA, which would change from year to year. There is a set number of slots open for AP classes, and the size of a grade class would determine the minimum required GPA. If you happen to be in a larger class as a whole, chances are that the minimum GPA requirement would be higher for you. I don't have a problem with this because competition amongst peers is a reality and an incentive to do better. However, if you wanted to maintain fairness, why not set a fixed minimum standard and adjust class number and size? Is it required that only 125 kids get into AP classes? Set a standard and let the students determine how many get in. There will always be students just below a required standard. By focusing only on them, it is inevitable that eventually no minimum standards will exist. It is also a complete disregard for all the students that have struggled and put in maximum effort to get into these classes. Not all students will be accepted to the college of their choice or be hired for the job he or she wants. Competition is a positive reality that motivates, and shielding students from it is a disservice to them. If everyone gets a trophy, there is no reason to shine. Please reconsider the decision that has been made without the input of parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Martina Bezdiktova, speaking in regards to high school honors classes.
Dear members of the Board of Education, this letter is being written on behalf of many concerned parents in the district regarding the Monroe-Woodbury Middle School letter dated March 5th outlining changes in respect to honors classes at the high school level beginning with the class 2025. This letter stated that in the upcoming school year, there will be no dedicated honors sections, but rather only enrichment opportunities for any students who want to challenge themselves with more rigorous materials. We believe that this is doing a disservice not only to students in the school system, but to the reputation of the Monroe-Woodbury School District as a whole. First, it is unclear from the context of the letter how this new program will be implemented. Many of us have older children who have already gone through Monroe-Woodbury High School honors and AP programs and have seen the benefits of these courses in preparing our children for the collegiate level. Therefore, we do not understand how this new initiative will work. Honors is meant to provide a deeper and more challenging curriculum for those who want to broaden their intellectual curiosity at a faster pace during normal school hours. How will students that are learning the standard curriculum be expected to complete advanced enrichment assignments without any instructions from the teachers? Will the enrichment opportunities be in the form of an after-school activity that may cause students to choose between their extracurriculars or the enrichment instructions? Is this a completely new program, or is it being modeled from other school districts that already have introduced such programs with success? Will this program make Monroe-Woodbury less competitive academically when compared with other school districts in the area? Is it hard to comprehend how such a major change in academic focus could have been decided upon without any input from students or parents? Eliminating honors from the educational program in the high school is much like eliminating advanced music programs or doing away with the selection process for some sports teams. Monroe-Woodbury consistently receives accolades for their achievements in music and athletics due to their excellence in these areas. Eliminating the criteria for participation in these activities would have a negative impact on the overall success of the programs. Would we continue to have distinguished music program if we eliminated advanced music groups? What would happen to high school sports if the district allowed any student that wanted to be in on a team join and provided all players equal playing time regardless of ability? Monroe-Woodbury has always been known for its high academics. It has provided students with better education than many private schools in the area by offering numerous opportunities for children to excel in academics, as well as the other areas such as music, arts, sports, theater, and leadership, based on students' individual talents and aptitude in these areas. This change in curriculum is taking the opportunity to excel away from those students that want to be intellectually stimulated in a setting with students of similar interests and goals. Why are these high-level students being denied the opportunity to be academically challenged? Over the years, many advanced classes have been added to the curriculum, including a variety of AP classes in an effort to further challenge students. Therefore, it is hard to understand why the district is now canceling honors classes going forward and how this decision fits the school's vision for providing students with a top learning environment. Every child has the right to quality education, but holding some students back who want to be challenged and strive for high learning is a disservice to those students. Maybe a better option would be to still have dedicated honors sections for those students meeting the academic criteria for honors class, and then offer enrichment opportunities and honor credits to any student who is not in the honor section. This would help to maintain the learning environment that is typically seen in honor section, while still allowing more students the opportunity to challenge themselves and achieve the honors distinction. Monroe-Woodbury High School prides itself on being a top public school, and it ranks high in college preparation. We believe that canceling honor classes will directly affect the district's college preparation path and school's rating. Please consider hearing the voices and concerns from all parents prior to making such an important decision in the future of our students and school. Thank you.
Thank you. Update on questions or comments from interested citizens from the previous meeting?
No, I think we did that.
I think we
Actually,
did.
at the same
Yep.
meeting. Mhm.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. First reading of the policy manual update. This is in regards to policy number 5633, gender-neutral single-use bathrooms. May I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? I will just add, I mean, I'll mention this later when we discuss committees. Policy meeting met. This policy is in regards to a mandate by New York State that we will be changing signage within our buildings, designating gender-neutral single-use bathrooms. So, but I can update that a little bit later also. So I'm sorry, we had a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Waiving of the second reading of the policy number 5633, gender-neutral single-use bathrooms.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We will now have a presentation by Dr. Hassler, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, in regards to the Accelerated Honors and Advanced Placement class update. Dr. Hassler?
Thank you very much. And I'd also like to have Mr. Casti, the high school principal, he's going to be coming up as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casti.
Before you both start, I do
Sure.
want to say something about the email that went out on Friday. I think the email that went out on Friday wasn't clear and I apologize to the families who, what they read was upsetting to them, but I think that this presentation will clear some of those questions up. But I do apologize, because I think the email, when you read it, it doesn't have context. So it just seems like this is coming out of nowhere, and I think it's important for people to understand that there's, well, you'll talk about it, but I did want to apologize for that.
So just to follow up on Mrs. Rodriguez's comment, we're certainly, I'm gonna dig into some of the things that we're talking about that Mr. Cassidy communicated, and hopefully give a little bit more context to the situation and what it's going to look like and the rationale behind some of these decisions. Certainly, I'm going to do my best. Thank you to the speakers for asking your questions. I'm going to do my best to hopefully weave in the answers to your questions. If there's anything that I leave out or things that are still lingering, certainly I encourage you, my email's on the district website. Reach out to me. I'm happy to have a phone conversation with you, an email, and we can talk about it further. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin by just overviewing some of the various honors, accelerated advanced placement, and college-bearing courses that we offer in Monroe-Woodbury. We start in the middle school with our math and science program, where we have an accelerated math program in 7th grade. We have an accelerated 8th grade program. Usually the 7th grade accelerated students go into algebra, which is a high school credit-bearing course culminating in the Regents exam. In middle school science, we have accelerated 8th grade biology, also a high school credit-bearing course that culminates in the students taking the biology Regents. Those are at the middle school level. In the high school, I'm going to start with the high school science department. This is a list of all of the courses that we offer that are either honors, advanced placement, college credit bearing, or a combination of them. Biology honors, AP Bio, Earth Science honors, AP Environmental Science, Chemistry honors, AP Chemistry, honors physics, college human biology, college marine biology, college earth science, college forensics, science research, AP Physics 1, and AP Physics C. And the asterisks designate the courses that might be AP courses that are also offered for college credit through some institution, whether it's Syracuse University or SUNY Orange or SUNY Albany. In the high school social studies department, we have global history 9 honors, global history, and these are current programs that are being offered during the 2021 school year at the present. The global history 9 honors, global history 10 honors, global history 10 honors humanities, the pre-AP World History program, the AP World History, U.S. History honors humanities, AP Euro, AP U.S. Government, AP U.S. History, College Criminal Justice. In the English department, English 9 honors, English 10 honors, English 11 honors, English 12 honors, English 10 humanities, English 11. The reason why I included English 11 on that list is because all students who take English 11 have the opportunity to be able to take that course for college credit. The English 11 Honors Humanities program, the AP Language program, the AP Literature program, and College Shakespeare. In math, we have the Geometry Honors, Algebra 2 Honors, College Pre-Calc Honors, AP Calculus AB, AP Calculus BC, AP Computer Science Principles, College Statistics, and then we have a number of other courses in various other departments, College First Aid CPR, College Generation Health, college level courses in all of the foreign languages, College Sports and Marketing, College Exploring Teaching as a profession. So the reason why I listed all of these courses is because I want to share with everybody in the community what the courses are that we're currently offering, and then shortly in the presentation, I'm going to share with everyone where the shifts are going to occur, what will remain consistent to the way that our practices are currently, and what is going to be changing. However, I want to spend a minute, because I've had many conversations with parents through this point. I want to spend a little bit of time just kind of outlining for everybody why now. That's one question that I've been asked is this seems to be coming out of the blue, and we didn't see this coming. So on March 29th, 2017, I did a presentation to the Board of Education because at the time, the board asked for, there were questions being raised by the community of students who were not being accepted into various programs that we offer in the school district. And very similar to in this situation where there was a lot of questions about something that the school district was doing, and parents were asking the board as to what the rationale was. Give us an explanation as to why kids get in and why kids don't get in. So on March 29, 2017, I gave a presentation to the Board of Education about all of the various programs that we offer in the school district, and I shared with the board at the time what the selection criteria was for each of the various programs, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And much of the presentation that I'm actually giving this evening, I actually went back to that 2017 presentation and I pulled it forward because many of the procedures and practices and policies that we had in place at that time were still very much in place for even some of the selections that took place this year. And one of the conversations that shifted out of that presentation was the desire for the school district to expand opportunities for students to gain access to honors, accelerated, and college-level courses. We have done quite a bit since that time. We've added, as parents have said, we've added a lot of courses. Many of the courses earlier that I spoke about are already open enrollment. Many of the college-level courses, college first aid and CPR, generation health, teaching as a profession. Many of the courses that we've added in recent years are open enrollment. However, some of the basic practices that I spoke about in 2017 are still in place. After that presentation, the district began a strategic plan initiative. You may recall that we administered a survey to the community, and we had a core task force committee in the school district. And the task force broke off into a number of different subgroups. And one of the subgroups was the curriculum and instruction subcommittee that looked at a number of different things. We established a variety of different goals. And one of the goals that came out of that was the desire to increase, similar to what was discussed at that March Board of Education meeting, was the desire to increase honors and accelerated opportunities for students. And one of the main reasons why that was the case was because, again, some of the procedures that I presented on in 2017 were still in place. And a major practice that we have in the school district that is used for quite a few classes is something that was referenced by the parents, where basically we have historically capped the number of students that have the ability to be invited into particular programs. And that's true for 7th grade math accelerated, algebra, biology, the AP, the pre-AP program up at the high school. And the way that we do that is we basically take the cohort of students in that particular year, and we rank them based upon their GPAs, assessment scores, and the students are ranked, and we basically find out what the top students are based upon the number of seats that we're going to offer. And we draw a line of, okay, the students above this line are the students who are invited, and the students below this line are the students that aren't invited. And one of the things that prompted that Board of Ed presentation was this one particular year, a number of parents were questioning. I don't remember exactly what the cutoff was that particular year, but it was something in the low 90s, 92, 93, something like that. And there was a lot of question of why would a 92 or a 93 be invited to be in this particular program, but a student who may have achieved a 91 is not being given the same opportunity as those other students. And again, that's a practice that has been used in a number of different programs across the school district. So that was discussed, and as we were moving forward, the decision was we need to try to find ways. We looked at a lot of different things. One of the parents asked, have we looked at what other school districts are doing? And we have. We've communicated to a number of different school districts. We tried to implement a challenge program where any student who has the ability to, who has the desire to participate in a program, they have to challenge into that program. And there are a number of different scheduling challenges that arise from that. Right now, the way that the program exists, if a student is in one of these classes where they're invited into the class. If they're not being successful, they need to either, continue in the class, get in the grades that they get, or they have to be removed from that class. That would involve a schedule change, a teacher change, and so on. So we looked at a lot of different options, and there were even recommendations that were made during that meeting, and we've explored a lot of those options, and they haven't yielded the results that we were happy with. Also, the district is, and I've presented on this in a number of recent Board of Education meetings, the district has embarked on a district-wide equity work where we have a district-wide equity team and we have implementation teams in each of the 7 buildings, and a theme that has been that has emerged that's consistent across all the buildings is how do we find opportunities to be able to increase the level of access to all of the programs and offerings that our school district has for students. Particularly at the secondary level, in the middle school and the high school, the conversation has been about how do we improve students' access to some of these accelerated and honors programs. And that's what has brought us to this point in terms of some of the shifts that we're making. So moving on to what are the courses that we're actually looking to expand student access and student opportunities to? These are the various courses that we are looking to increase student opportunity and access. English 9 Honors, English 9 Humanities, AP Language Composition, AP Literature Composition, and in the Social Studies Department, Global History 9H, Global 9 Humanities, AP Euro, AP US Government, and AP US History. Every other course, and I don't need to reread them to everybody, but all of the other courses are remaining exactly the same way that they are. I had a parent who reached out to me who similar to one of the parents who spoke, had an older child who had gone through the programs. Their older child took algebra and biology in the middle school, and they went into the high school, and they were in earth science honors, and they were in geometry honors. Those programs are going to continue to exist. They're remaining unchanged. So I don't need to reread these to you. These are the science courses that are remaining unchanged. These are the math courses, and these are the various other courses that some of them still are going to have, for example, the pre-AP the pre-AP World History program and the AP World History program during sophomore year. Those programs are still at this moment in time going to have the same prerequisites, the same thing as the math and the science department, and the reason being is because many of the math and the science courses have certain prerequisites in place in order for students to be able to go in with a certain body of knowledge. We don't have the ability, even though we're looking at AP courses at the junior and senior level, we don't have the ability to be able to open up an AP calculus course to all students for open enrollment, because in order to be able to be successful in calculus, you need to take pre-calculus. In order to be able to be successful in pre-calculus, you need to take algebra 2. So there's a sequence there that has to be in place. So all of those programs are remaining as is. So the next question on everyone's mind is, what exactly is this going to look like? So, okay, we've identified what the courses are going to be. How is this going to impact my child? So there are, of the courses that I listed, there are 3 courses that are at the freshman level, and then there's a number of different courses at the junior and at the senior level. We are talking about English 9, we're talking about Global History 9, and we're talking about Humanities. And basically what's going to take place is students are going to be in they're going to be scheduled for a course. It's going to be English 9. Students are then going to, in that program, have the option of, are they going to follow a traditional pathway in the curriculum through the regular Regents course, or are they going to do a portion of the program that is being offered that is resembling to the work that students have access to in an honors class? And the best example that I can give would be, one of the questions that I got from parents was, so does this mean that you're going to be giving my child additional work? That the teacher's going to be teaching English 9, and that's the way that the class is going to be run. And then the teacher's going to give my child the packet and say, here you go, take this packet home, and if you complete this packet, then you're going to earn honors credit. And that's not what the plan is at all. An example that I can give would be if an English 9 class is reading the short story, The Snows of Kilimanjaro by Ernest Hemingway. Typically, the students would read a short story and they would write a response piece to that short story, and there would be class discussions on that. The accompaniment to that would be that students who want to pursue that honors credit, rather than having an additional assignment on top of The Snows of Kilimanjaro, their assignment might be, how do you compare The Snows of Kilimanjaro to A Clean and Well-Lighted Place by Hemingway, and write your reaction to that? Not, you're going to read The Snows of Kilimanjaro, you're going to write an essay about that, then you're going to go and you're going to read The Clean, Well-Lighted Place, and you're going to do a separate essay on that. It's basically an opportunity for the students within the curriculum to get a more a deeper dive into the material. They're going to get exposure to possibly other literature, other forms of analysis and review of the material that is in place within that classroom. It is not a completely separate and different assignment that they're going to be given to do more work. It's going to be similar in the global history as well as humanities. And I want to note about the piece that's going to be in place for humanities. Previously, English Humanities 9 and Global Humanities 9 have not previously been offered for credit. However, this shift in giving kids more opportunities, we are now going to be offering any student who is in the humanities program. Humanities honors doesn't begin until the 10th grade level. However, honors credit is now going to be offered, and I'll talk a little bit more in a second about what honors credit is going to look like. Honors credit is now going to be offered as an opportunity for kids in the humanities program as well moving forward. So the shift at the junior and senior level is going to look a little bit differently, where right now, if a student is a sophomore in the 2021 school year and they're going into their junior year, depending upon the class that they're taking in their sophomore year, they would either roll into English 11 or English 11 honors, or if they're in the humanities program, they could potentially be going into the English 11 humanities program, or they have the option to go into, they can choose to go into the AP language and composition course. Now, that's going to be pretty significant for students because the AP language and composition course is, if you noticed back in the presentation earlier, AP language and composition is a course that is currently not being offered for college credit. It's only being offered for AP credit. However, the English 11 and English 11 honors program is being offered for college credit. So students would have to make the choice of, do they want to potentially stick with their English 11 English honors pathway, or do they want to go into the AP language and composition course and potentially pursue AP credit through taking the AP exam? It would be very similar on the social studies side, where a student, depending upon the class that they're taking while they're a sophomore, for their junior year, they would go into either U.S. History 11, U.S. History 11 honors, the U.S. History Humanities 11 honors program, or the AP U.S. History program. Again, similar choices in their senior year, where depending upon the program that they're in, they can choose to go into English 12 or the AP Literature program. The only option in terms of AP that would take place is on the U.S. government side. The high school social studies requirement in 12th grade is half a year of U.S. government and half a year of economics. So the AP U.S. government class is only a half a year, so they could choose to, rather than going into the AP U.S. government program, they could they can continue into an AP U.S. government and politics course. One of the questions that a parent had asked earlier is, what exactly does that mean in terms of credit? So, a student will, even though there's not a designated course, students will still receive on their transcript, if they follow the the trajectory of the honors material in their class. They will still receive an honors designation on their transcript so that when they apply to college, it will still designate that the material that they covered in the course that they took is an honors designated class. The weighting will still apply. Right now, there's weighting that's in place for students who do take honors level material. The weighting will still continue to apply, so that will factor into their GPA. Another question that was asked was, does this allow Monroe-Woodbury to remain competitive? Does it mean if you're going to be giving additional students the opportunity to take, say, college level or AP courses, that in any way is that going to dilute the academic strength and offerings of our school district? So that everybody is aware, there will be no curricular changes in any of the AP courses or college level courses, because in order for a course to be considered an advanced placement course, that's actually a designation that is accredited to school districts by the College Board. There is a course auditing authorization process that every single course and every single instructor has to go through the College Board to be designated as an advanced placement course. If we do not follow that process and the curriculum specified for that course that ultimately culminates in that specific AP exam, we don't have the ability to be able to call that class an advanced placement class. So the curriculum for advanced placement U.S. history during the 2021 school year and the curriculum for the AP U.S. history course during the 21-22 school year will remain exactly the same. That's also the case for our college-bearing classes, where all of the courses that I outlined earlier that are offered, that are granted credit by various institutions, even though the teachers are Monroe-Woodbury teachers, they are essentially designated as adjunct professors through the institution that's granting credit. So if Eric Hassler teaches AP Calculus and the credit is being given through SUNY Albany, I am considered not only a teacher through Monroe-Woodbury, but I am an adjunct professor through SUNY Albany, and I need to submit the grades that the students achieve in that classroom to SUNY Albany, and I have to attest that they've successfully completed the class in order for them to receive a transcript from SUNY Albany. In addition, our curriculum has to be approved by SUNY Albany, and the final exam that we administer by SUNY Albany has to be approved by them. They send representatives from the various departments down to Monroe-Woodbury to conduct audits to ensure that we are following the proper the proper curriculum outlines in order to be designated as a SUNY Albany calculus course or a SUNY Orange freshman English course in the case of English 11. None of the standards are going to be in any way diminished or watered down or modified in order to be able to make this change. The only thing that's going to change is giving additional students the opportunity in order to be able to take those courses. One thing that I neglected to mention when I spoke about the middle school, one of the things that we haven't been able to do, as I mentioned, in math and science because of the prerequisites that are in place. One thing that we have looked at is how do we increase opportunities for students at the middle level to be able to gain access to the acceleration that happens in algebra and in biology. And something that started this year was the middle school sent out a Google form and gave students the opportunity to express an interest to participate in accelerated math. The vast majority, nearly all of the students who expressed an interest about participating in accelerated math were given the opportunity to do so for the 2021 school year. As I mentioned previously, we capped that number at about 125 students. I mean, that's been in place for I don't know how long, Mrs. Rodriguez, probably
It dates me.
since Mrs. Rodriguez was the middle school principal.
I've been here 20 years.
Right.
It predates me.
So we've capped that amount. Basically, it's been 5 classes of 25 students for a long time. This year, we have 185 students so there's an additional 60 students who are currently taking Accelerated Math 7, who potentially would have an opportunity to be able to take algebra when they are in 8th grade. thereby earning a high school credit and potentially opening up room in their schedule when they get into the high school to be able to take some of the additional college-level electives when they get into high school. Some of the students that are in that accelerated math class at the end of the school year, they're going to have a choice of, you know what, this class was a lot for me, and I don't know that I'm going to continue. I may want to return to Math 7 at the end of the school year. Some students in the middle of the school year decided that they wanted to back out of that program. Certainly, all of those things will remain in place moving forward, but what we realized was, similar to that presentation that I gave in 2017, where I think what prompted that discussion was, if a student in any particular year got a 92, you might have a year where the cutoff for students to get into that program was a 93 based upon the cohort of students that existed, and that student might not necessarily be given that opportunity. The following school year, with the same analysis that's done, the cutoff of 125 might have been at a 91, and that student with that 92 in the following school year would have potentially, would have been able to be given that opportunity in order to be able to get in. And what we found is it's very difficult for us to be able to say definitively what that number would be that would guarantee student success. For us to say, you know what? This student with a 90 we don't think is going to be successful, or maybe that student with an 89 will rise to the occasion and succeed. But ultimately for the school district to be the one who's making that decision and saying to students, no, you don't belong in this class, or yes, you belong in this class, is potentially holding students back from having the opportunity in order to be able to thrive and to be successful. Mr. Cassidy, did I miss anything?
No, you covered everything we spoke about earlier. Thank you.
I just want to follow up on it, and thank you, it's very comprehensive. But did you discuss the weighting? Is the weighting staying the same?
Weighting, yes, weighting. The classes are going to appear. The students that choose to cover the honors material, it will appear on their transcript as English 9 honors, as Global 9 honors. It will have the same weighting as it always has in the past, so none of that is changing. So, you know, I've had a common thing that parents have reached out to me was, you are taking away the honors program. And the only thing that's changing is the capacity within which students can earn honors credit. Right now, it's going to be given more access to students to be able to achieve that credit. However, the honors designation and the honors credit and the calculation into the GPA is going to be exactly the same.
I'm sorry, one more thing. While you were talking, it made me think and just clarify that right now, students in an AP class or students taking a dual enrollment class, they do not have to take that exam. So those same students are sitting in the class. The teacher is teaching both the same curriculum, but for the exam as well, right? So
Correct.
Maybe a third of the class only is taking the actual exam? But it's still
There's always the option within these classes of whether or not the student decides that they're going to pay the fee to the college in order to be able to be given a transcript at the end of the course, or do they want to, pay the fee to sit down and take the AP exam or not? And that's an individual decision that the students are going to have to make.
Why a student may take an AP course. It could be for...
So additional students may choose to take it and not necessarily take it for college credit or whatever. That choice is on them. But in no way is that going to mean that we're going to make any modification in the curriculum, because we would lose our capacity to be able to offer it for college credit if we felt that we had to modify the curriculum in order to be able to accommodate for students.
Well, that's what
in order to be
saying.
able to call it an AP, AP physics class that's also being offered for, Physics 1 at whatever institution, we must maintain that curriculum and that material in order to have that designation.
Right, regardless of whether those children are taking the AP exam
Correct.
or not.
Whether there's 12 kids or 60 kids that are taking the
And
class.
the same for the dual enrollment. They're still...
Same.
Okay.
And my question is about the
Donahue.
dual enrollment courses. The courses that bear college credit, where the teacher is actually a teacher here and also considered an adjunct. Are those students getting dual credit?
They have the option in order to be able to do that, yes.
Right, so they would get
Ultimately,
high school credit
similar
and
to what Mrs.
potentially
Tauber said,
they pay.
that's a choice that the student has to make. They have to decide, and there's many
It's
factors.
not one or the other. They could get both?
Wait, AP or college?
No, the college credit.
They can get it, they can either take it for college credit, or they can just take it for Monroe-Woodbury High School credit and have it count as a math, a math
They get a
requirement.
separate grade from the colleges, right?
Say that
They get a
again.
separate grade for that course from SUNY Orange or SUNY Albany.
Yes, the teachers then convert it to whatever the grading scale is that's used by the college. So you have your regular grade that appears on your high school transcript, which is a grade out of 100, and then
then
whatever the
college
grading
transcript.
practice is of the institution,
If you pay for
the
that.
teacher converts it to that using the grading scale that's established by the institution and then submits the grade to. So you might, most colleges are A, B, C, D. You'll get a transcript from SUNY Albany at the end of the year saying you got an A or an A minus or a B or whatever in that particular course based upon what you.
But it's not an automatic enrollment. It's a choice that the
The
student.
student ultimately makes that, correct, yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Doctor, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. Are we only talking about these 7 courses that you listed here out of the, 35 that you
Correct.
put up?
Yes.
So in hindsight, it might have been a good idea to sort of express that in the email that we're talking about.
And I
7
think that's the reason why I'm sitting here giving this presentation, that yes, because we want to make sure that, and honestly, that's the reason why I packaged it that way, because I think that, again, I've already spoken to many parents who've raised concerns about this, and the understanding was that we were taking away the honors program. That honors is going away, and these opportunities are going to be shifted in a different direction. And that's the reason why I wanted to be able to present it that way, to say that there's really, it's a slice that is being impacted, not the overall program, correct?
Can I also follow up? You talked about we don't want to be, as a school district, making that decision as to who should be able to take these classes
Right.
and not. But yet, in the vast majority of these kind of classes, we're doing that.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you're,
Oh, I
one
see
of
what
the
you're
rationale
saying.
that you said in order to.
So really what you're saying is, why aren't we doing more, basically? Is that what you're saying? Well,
No, I'm saying if you're using that as a rationale as to why we're doing this,
right.
it's not consistent.
Right.
Because we're not doing it in 28 other classes.
Right.
And that's been the way we've been handling it for a while. So why do it now for these classes?
So the reason why we're looking specifically, really, we're looking on the English and social studies side. We're not looking at the science and the social studies side. And the reason why we're not is.
Science and math.
What's that?
Sorry, I'm just correcting you because you said social studies twice, science and math.
Sorry, yes, we're looking at the ELA and social studies classes and not the science and math classes, is because we still need to have all of the prerequisites that are in place. However, the only thing that, similar to what I was saying before, the only opportunity that we have is to really start at the beginning, which is the reason why I brought up the middle school accelerated math program. Basically, what we're doing is we can't start it midstream and say, we're just going to open up AP Calc for kids. Anybody who wants to take AP Calc, knock yourself, take AP Calc. We're starting at the middle school level and giving additional students the opportunity at the 7th grade math class. So it's going to take us a number of years for that cohort of students to go through. And again, similar to what's going to happen, I believe, in some of these other instances, you're going to have some students who rise to the occasion and they want to continue at it. Out of the 185, we don't know exactly how many kids are ultimately going to decide that they want to stick with the algebra program.
Can I jump into that?
Oh, sure, okay.
Because as
Mr.
I'm
Cassie, you
listening.
can jump in on this too, as well.
No, as I'm listening to you,
I have
I
a couple
think
more questions.
people are, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
ahead.
Because he said that, and then it jarred my thought. My question is, we have the middle school principal here, and I hate to call anybody and put them on the spot, but what is the data showing? So we would normally have 120 students who would make it into this accelerated 7th grade math. And this year, I think Dr. Hausler said we had like 180
That qualified.
that who asked to be a part of it, right? A total of 180 students. Of those 180 students, how many of those are in line to move into 8th grade accelerated and take the Regents?
The vast majority of those students are in line to go up to algebra the following year. There are some students who are struggling currently in that setting who may choose not to move into the algebra program and may do a regular math program. But we're talking about a handful of students. The vast majority are looking to move forward with algebra.
Can you give me a percentage?
So we're looking at least, typically we have 4 sections of algebra run per year. We are looking at a minimum of 7 sections, possibly 8 sections. So we are looking in the 175 to 180 grade.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Anderson.
No, no, no.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought that was important. I thought that was
Repeat that number
important.
again so that so that I can say it into the microphone so that people can hear.
I would say safely, conservatively, we say we're scheduling for about 175 students, maybe every other week.
So out of the 185, as you're in the process of developing the master schedule for next year, you're targeting roughly 175 students that you believe are going to be rolling into algebra next year in 8th grade.
Which, under normal circumstances, would have been capped at 120?
125, yes.
125. Thank you.
I have a question. So we're looking at English and social studies, so can you talk a little bit about why the change is not being made for the pre-AP class?
In the,
Pre-AP world history?
good question. Mr. Casti, pre-AP.
So when I had that discussion with Mr. McElroy earlier, one of the things with the pre-AP is with any AP course or college course, you have to have a teacher certified to be able to do that. And right now, we only have one teacher that is in line to do that. Also, that requires a textbook, and that would be another financial hit to the social studies department budget, that we'd have to buy more textbooks. So that is not out of the question in the future, but for this year, we felt instead of, trying to force something else and create other areas where we might have to use financial means to take care of things, that we would look at that for maybe the following year.
So a couple more questions.
Go ahead, yes.
I understand the theory that, math and science, you have to have sequential learning.
Right.
But if I heard it right, the example you gave about the two Hemingway books, one was going to be asking questions about one Hemingway book, and then the second was going to ask questions about two Hemingway books and contrasting and comparing them. But that's still sort of sequential, because you have to assume that the child has now read two books instead of one. And frankly, I'm not sure how that works in the same classroom.
Right.
The other question I want you to also ponder is, we're jumping from 120 to open enrollment, as if 180 want to get in or something. Why not something in between? There's a pretty large gap there that we probably could have offered this on a lesser level instead of sort of opening it up so wide.
So I think one of the things that we grappled with over the years is, again, sort of finding what that line would be of the cutoff of students who should and should not be in. That inevitably, one of the things that we've spoken about is a major perk of a student taking particularly algebra and biology is that they're essentially getting 1 or 2 high school credits in preparation for graduation, which opens up their schedule for them to be able to take other electives down the line. And what we're realizing is that to say that, we're going to cap it, even if we decided that we're going to cap it at 150, that might bring the number, and I don't have the exact data in front of me, so I'm just sort of guesstimating. Maybe the overall average might go down to, say, a 90. The cutoff might be a 90 or an 89. Who's to say that 88 might not necessarily be able to demonstrate success? And the other piece of that is to say to a student who has that 88 or 89, we're not going to allow you to get into this particular class. But for a student and a parent to say, yes, maybe my child might get a better grade in Math 8, maybe they would get a 90 in Math 8 and they might get something in the high 80s in algebra or whatever, I would still rather have my child get that opportunity to get that high school credit, to open up the opportunity for them to be able to take an AP class down the line, rather than the school district being the barrier of saying to that student, no, we're not going to allow you. And I think another example of that would be, in past years, I've done presentations to the Board of Education on our Regents results, right? Like I go back to the June Regents, and here's how our kids performed and everything else. And something that has happened, if I went back to that presentation, something that has happened over the last few years was, in the science department, we offered a number of different electives for kids. The electives were not college-bearing courses. They were just additional opportunities for kids to earn a science credit towards graduation. An example would be meteorology. Students did very well in that particular class. Like they took the class, they did really, really well. And I think that what happened over time was, because it was not a college-bearing course and it was just simply an elective and it wasn't a Regents course, colleges did not look at on that class as favorably as they did if students were to take a physics Regents level course. So what we saw over time was, we saw an increase in the number of students who were taking the Regents physics class and the physics Regents, but what happened was our Regents scores started to dip. And oftentimes when I give that presentation and I say to the board, I want to say that the number of students who typically take the physics Regents is somewhere in the 200 range. There's no other school district in the area who has that number of students who take the physics Regents, not even close. And so we really push the students to take those high-level classes, even though it means when I come to the board and I present our physics results, it might show a slight decline in the performance of the kids, but it just means that more kids are taking it. And in the end, for those students that are taking it, they're okay if they get, in the 80s on the physics Regents, because that looks more appealing on their transcript when they're applying to college than if they took, say, meteorology. If that makes sense the way that I'm explaining it.
I have another question.
I think it'd be better, though, if we focused on having the kids raise their scores so that we had more kids that would qualify for the prerequisites that we've set.
Right.
And that was what we would address, as opposed to sort of, in a sense, lowering the standards so that more could get in. I'd rather focus on raising the achievement.
Right.
That would be my personal.
And I don't necessarily see it that we're lowering the standards for students to be able to get into the program. I think that what we're saying is that for a student to be able to have access to an AP course that may look more favorably on a college application than just, say, a simple elective, should be, rather than the school district limiting the number of students that get access to that class, the student gets to make that decision themselves, rather than you taking meteorology and getting a 90 in meteorology versus you taking physics and getting in the 80s in physics, but the physics looks better on that application, giving the opportunity to the students rather than making that decision for them.
But that's not life.
Right.
I have a question. My question, Mr. Cassidy mentioned both staffing and budget. So it seemed like the only time that was an issue was with the pre-AP class, so this has no implication on budget or staffing?
No, and the reason why it doesn't is because the only shift in the number of sections that we're talking about would be the number of sections of AP Language, for example, or AP US History. But what that means is I'm a junior. Instead of taking English 11 or English 11 honors, I'm going to be taking AP Language. It just means that we would have less sections of the AP English 11 or English 11 honors, more sections of the, you had the same number of English teachers.
But he mentioned the AP textbook, so is that not an issue for any of the other AP classes?
No, I don't think that's an impact. Only that pre-AP class was the one that was an issue.
So if I'm understanding the middle school data correctly, is we just went from 120 to 185 students, and we just enrolled 65 extra students in more advanced mathematics.
Right.
Kids that would not be given an opportunity to have it before, and it appears that majority of them are succeeding and are going on. So even if someone makes an argument for the future, let's say, if you follow these kids for 3, 4, or 5 years, will they continue that path? They may or may not, but you just exposed them to more advanced knowledge. And you really have not taken anything away, if I'm understanding this correctly, from kids who are succeeding and who would have succeeded, the original 120, are still continuing to do what they're continuing to do. Is there a detriment to the other students?
The detriment is, and this is something that I had mentioned in the 2017 presentation, is that if we do this, it's not going to impact the staffing on the ELA and the social studies side, but down the line, it may potentially impact the staffing on the science and the math side, because now you basically have an additional 50 students who are going in with high school credit who are going to be essentially a year ahead in math and maybe looking at more kids taking pre-calc, more kids taking AP calculus in 4 or 5 years down the road, which would end up being the possibility of additional staff. Because right now, when you have a student choosing English 11 or AP Honor or AP Language, It's just less sections on the English side. But now, because kids are really being accelerated, you know, the question is going to be either we're going to have those kids sitting in study halls because they're going to finish their graduation requirements early, or we want to be able to offer additional sections for those students down the line.
And while we have amazing electives, but it looks a lot better and more challenging for them to take an AP level.
Absolutely.
Can I just go back to the part that you mentioned in regards to, under the current situation, if you were in the class and you were struggling, and I believe one of the parents had mentioned in regards to qualifying with the GPA, what is the plan then in those classes where, similar to what Anthony is saying, that if I'm choosing the trajectory of the honors program, and, you know, Dan is sitting next to me and he is not, I start to, you know, I'm struggling. At some point, will there be an average associated with my grade that I would then just go on to the same curriculum as my classmate, or how is that part of it going to work?
Correct. In order to be able to complete the honors credit in the end, you're going to need to complete all of the various items along the way successfully in order to get the honors credit in the end. And again, that's been one of the challenges, similar to what Mr. Masano was talking about. When you still have these designated sections, inevitably, either a student doesn't do well and needs to be taken out of the class and put into a different class, which has its own challenges, or they stick it out and maybe their grades are not necessarily what they could have been. But in this particular case, it gives students, I had a conversation with a parent who called me. The parent has two kids, a 10th grader and an 8th grader. And I think similar to a lot of the questions that I received, well, so the parent was of a 10th grader and an 8th grader, and the 10th grader had taken, you know, some of the accelerated courses in the middle school, went into earth science, went into, I believe, geometry, and you know, the parent was under the belief that their 8th grader was not going to have the same opportunities as the 10th grader. And when I sat and had a conversation with the parent, I went into Power School and I looked at the grades and the schedule of the 10th grader, and I actually said to the parent, if your 10th grader was in, you know, if we rewound 3 years and your child was back then, here's the opportunities that your child would have had along the way. In addition to all of the same things that your child accomplished, your child would have been able to do these various items. And the parent said to me, actually, there was a discussion, she had a discussion with the guidance counselor, and the student was worried about going into like the honors level class because of that, because of not knowing 100% whether they were going to be able to maintain the expectations of that classroom and having to be taken out. And she said, if this was the environment, I think that my child would have certainly thrived on that environment and probably been very successful, because the student now is in honors chemistry, like has really risen to the occasion and is doing exceptionally well.
So a student can go from honors level, if they're not succeeding, they could move back down to the Regents level within the same class.
Correct.
But they cannot move from the Regents level up to the honors level once the class has started?
I don't have an answer to that question 100% yet. As of right now, we're sort of planning this is the honors material and you need to complete all of this in order to be able to receive that honors credit. I can't say to you definitively, no, absolutely not. Once, you have to sign on the dotted line right from the beginning, and we're not going to be giving you that opportunity. But as of right now, that's sort of the model that we're in the process of developing is, you are looking to sort of follow along and achieve these certain benchmarks along the way in order to be able to earn the honors credit.
But there will be an eventual cutoff in terms of time, so it's,
yes.
whether it's halfway into the first quarter.
Correct.
Or something along those lines,
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Some of the parents that reached out over the weekend were concerned with the level of engagement in a streamlined class for the students and how that would impact their level of participation in an honors program, because some of the students or the parents' kids feel that it helps push them and move them along because the classroom is at a different caliber, they're focused on different work. And how is that going to be addressed in mixing both classes in one?
I think, and this is specific to Monroe-Woodbury, I think one of the things that has been a frame of reference for us, particularly on the ELA and the social studies side, has been the humanities program. Because students of varying abilities have the ability to be able to participate in the humanities program. And we feel that there's been a lot of success. You know, there hasn't been any, slowing down of the rigor of the course or anything like that, that they are still able to have those very engaged activities and dialogues and dig deeply into the material and things like that, even though, it might be within a different context. So I think because we have that humanities program, we certainly believe that that's going to continue to transcend into what it is that we're doing, and that this model is not going to slow down any of those items.
So a year from now or so, how will you measure the success of this program?
First and foremost, I think the same exact way that Mr. Masano spoke about what is happening at the middle level. We're going to sit down and we're going to look and see, now that we've given this opportunity to students, who's taking advantage of the opportunity and what is it going to look like. So I think first and foremost, it's the statistics of, we have 185 students that started off the year in 7th grade accelerated math, and if we end up with 175 students that now are going to be going into algebra, that's 50 additional students who are now being given the opportunity to be able to move ahead in school that they might not have been given in the past. Mrs. Rodriguez, you look like you're going to say something.
No, I also wanted to say that's a short-term look at this.
Mm-hmm.
We have to also have the long-term look at this. So we have to look at the class of 2025, did you say? The class of 2025, and then we have to take a look at those students and see how many students stayed with it and how many of our students are graduating with honors, AP, and college credits. And then take a look back and compare that to the students who were there a year before them.
But even if that doesn't pan out, you still have planted a seed of additional knowledge in a child. And that seed may grow in 10 years and 5 years and 15 years, where they're going to look back and say, hey, you know what, I took that math course, and now I'm in college, let me try that again. It's the exposure. You have to expose these kids to as much as you can. So even if the statistics doesn't pan out, I still see a benefit to this.
And I think an example of that, Mrs. Rodriguez, is the example that when we were on the phone earlier today with the parent, the example that you gave about the student that you...
That I sort of pushed through.
I think that's an example of what we're talking about here.
That's true. I had a student who, when I was in your position, came to me and said, I want to be challenged. And the AP at the high school and I had a conversation because she challenged and she was yet not allowed to take it. And then we had...
She was essentially appealing the decision of, she fell below the
And the decision,
mark.
We eventually came to the agreement that the student would take the course and then we would see. The student is now a doctor and has come back to Monroe-Woodbury to present her research. And so I think that's an example of a student, when we allow kids the opportunity to challenge themselves, that it can really be instrumental in a student's life, so much like what you said.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Dr. Hassler. Thank you, Mr. Cassidy, Mr. Masano. I think we're going to take a short 5-minute break before we move on with the agenda and the budget presentation. So we will take a quick 5-minute break.
What do you prefer? Abridged or unabridged?
Good evening. We're back in session, and no official board business took place during the break. We're moving on with our agenda. Item number 10, which is budget presentation, non-instructional items. Mr. Patrick Cahill.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. So I just want to thank the Board of Education for allowing us to present to you this evening. We're kicking off our 21-22 budget season here with our first meeting. And when we're talking about this budget, we're talking about the general fund budget, which is the chief operating fund of the school district. The school district has other funds, operating funds, a school lunch fund. We have a special aid fund where the financial transactions for grants and the Summer Crusaders program are accounted for. Just considering those two funds, there's probably an additional $9 million in transactions. So we're a big operation. And the general fund is the only fund that the public votes on directly. It's one of the few times where the community members or voters actually approve a budget, a school district budget. So it's a high bar to pass. Most municipalities just are, the budget is approved by their governing board or body. So tonight we're going to talk about the tax cap, which is something we talk about every year, the limit on the tax levy. We're going to review state aid, like where it stands now, because it's, tends to be a moving target, and these are unusual times, to say the least. We're going to talk a little bit about buildings and grounds and where that budget stands, that functional area. We're going to cover central printing. Dr. Bargal-Villas will cover that, central printing, data processing, computer-assisted instruction, library media. And finally, Ms. Dawn Russell, our transportation director, will talk a little bit about transportation. So if we just dive right in here, I wanted to just cover the tax cap right off the bat, and I'll just give a very high-level definition of the cap, so that the cap is really just a limit on the annual increase in the tax levy. And it's applicable to all local governments in New York State, county, town, village, and school districts, not just school districts. The maximum allowable levy is the term we use that basically just indicates the levy that you cannot exceed without more than 60% of your voters approving your budget, and that's the override mechanism that's available. There are also some limited exclusions to the cap. It's a multi-step formula, which I'm going to go through. It's about 8 steps, and then you can have some exceptions, exemptions, exclusions. Those are all synonymous. Basically, it means the same thing. It's like an add back. So you go through the process, compute your cap, and then you're able to add back certain expenses which they consider sort of outside of your control to some degree. So I will just walk through. I won't go through every step in the computation of the formula, but it basically begins with the prior year tax levy, which is actually the current year. In this case, it's about $124.7 million. We apply the tax base growth factor, which is this line here. In our case, it's 1.007, which is under 1%. And that's a factor that gets at any growth in the local tax base. So in other words, the cap isn't designed if you had a lot of development or like growth in the tax base, like we have commercial development, industrial, residential. It's not designed to prevent you from taxing new property, like brick and mortar property. And that's what that tax base growth factor does. It's provided by New York State, and we apply that to the current year levy or the prior year levy. We then add our prior year payments in lieu of taxes. So these are payments districts receive in lieu of taxes, as the name implies. It's rather than taxes. It's usually a negotiated settlement with a property owner for new development in an area. So we add that back because they're like property taxes. So we add that back in. We deduct our prior year exclusions. So these were the add back from the prior year. We take that out, and we have our adjusted prior year levy right here. So that's sort of a baseline levy. And from that, we apply the allowable growth factor. And that is and I have in quotes the 2% tax cap. That's where the 2% part of the tax cap formula comes in. And the rule for the allowable growth factor is the lesser of 2% or CPI. So it's kind of like the rate of inflation. So for the upcoming year, the CPI was 1.23%, so just under 1.25%. So that's the allowable growth factor. That's the increase to this adjusted levy. So we then subtract the pilots from the upcoming year, and we have our tax levy limit here, and then we add back our exclusions, our exemptions. So in our case, for the last few years and including this year, the primary exemption or exclusion has to do with capital expenses. So for us, it's basically debt service, net or less of any building aid we receive on that, and it's expenses associated with the purchase of buses. So that's also considered a capital expense. So the cost of the bus, less any transportation aid we would receive based on that expense, is what the exclusion or the exemption is. So that's an add back. And we end up with our maximum allowable levy for next year of $127,079,769. It's a $2.3 million increase, or 1.88%. So less than 2%, Just by way of comparison, I've shown the prior year information, which is really applicable to this year, and you can see that for this year, our levy cap was, maximum allowable levy was 2.07%. And as you recall, we actually opted to levy below that at about 1.5%. It's a rule of thumb with business officials. You should, never do that because it's like leaving money on the table. But the, just extraordinary circumstances of last year, the budget, the impact to the local economy and things, I think we just felt it was something we needed to do at that time. So the recommendation for this upcoming year, and again, this is the start of this process, there's going to be a lot of deliberations and things will change, would be that we levy at or nearly at the maximum allowable levy. I think we'll need all of that for this year's budget, and I'll show you why. So I just want to shift gears to the state aid discussion for a moment. And what I'll do, I won't take too much time because I know we've had a long evening already. I'll just talk about the normal process for state aid. So the normal process goes something like this. The New York State Education Department Board of Regents comes up with a proposal, generally in November, December, and they normally ask for a lot of money. They say, our recommendation is you increase state aid to school districts by $3 billion, something like that. And they have some, items that they target generally. They may want foundation aid fully funded. There'll be some big, ambitious kind of proposal. The governor usually comes in early January, low. So they come in high, he comes in lower, and he comes in with his recommendation as part of his state budget. And then they reconcile, the state legislature reconciles somewhere in the middle when the state budget is adopted, the end of March. April 1 is the start of the fiscal year. So obviously last year was very different, right? It stretched, into May, the May timeframe, May, June almost. And this year is very different as well. The governor has come out with his executive budget proposal for state aid. It includes some things that he's included in the past, a couple of new things as well. So the first thing I wanted to mention is the flat foundation aid. And foundation aid is one of the primary general aids to school districts. We've talked about this in the past, how it was rolled out about 12 years ago, 10 to 12 years ago. It was designed to be more equitable for school districts, take into account, wealth and poverty. State aid is supposed to be an equalizing factor, but it was never fully phased in because of the problems in the state had fiscally during the Great Recession. And we've been lobbying, every year to fully phase in that formula and use that. And it looks like now it's just not going to happen. So the governor is proposing flat foundation aid. This should be 3 years with no increase. So for next year, if it is flat, if it turns out to be no increase, that would be 3 years locked in at the same level of foundation aid. He's proposing a new services aid program, which is something he did last year. It's a consolidation of about 11 state aid programs, mostly expense-based aids and categorical aids. And for the most part, it's hard to know exactly, how this is going to impact you. But what it does, we do know, is it will decouple certain expense-based aids from your aid from your actual expense. So, for instance, and you'll see in a moment, we're seeing a bit of an increase in transportation aid. When you see an increase in something like transportation aid, in the following year you're going to see a corresponding increase in your aid. Because if I spend $1 this year in transportation aid, depending on your aid ratio, you may see 70 cents in aid the following year. So by rolling all these expense-based aids together, the governor is able to, number one, for the state, I see why they like to do it, they want to understand what their future liability is. It also simplifies things to some degree, because I'm going to talk a little bit about the way these expense-based aids can be projections. You don't know, the local district doesn't know exactly what it might get. The state doesn't know exactly what it might have to pay out. And that's the appeal of rolling it into a block grant that you can just link to, a number, enrollment or CPI, something like that. But I think generally school districts, New York State school boards, has been opposed to this idea. It was rolled out last year, and it's being rolled out this year. It also has the potential to really negatively impact BOCES. So BOCES aid is available for certain services, not all BOCES services. But part of the appeal of using BOCES, not only do you get economies of scale and you can turn to someone who who's trusted and part of the educational system, but you receive aid for a lot of those expenditures you make with BOCES. So that would be one of those aids that's being rolled into services aid. So I think it definitely in the long run would harm BOCES, local BOCES. The next bullet I have here is about $4 billion, 3.8 in federal funds that were used for state aid this year. So in other words, the state received this one-time money from the federal government. It looks like they're going to receive more one-time money with the passage of the $1.9 trillion stimulus package. But in this budget, they took that entire amount that was allocated to school districts and used it to backfill for ordinary state aid. So, the issue with that or the problem with that is in the long run, not even the long run, next year maybe, you face, they call it the fiscal cliff, where when that one-time money is gone, how are you going to make up that hole that you've created in your state budget? There was also a local district funding adjustment, which is just basically a cut to aid. So we had this cut, and this happened about 10 years ago with the gap elimination adjustment during the Great Recession, where you have a cut and then a restoration with federal monies. That was part of the proposal this year. The governor included STAR as a state aid source, which distorts the revenue picture with aid. The STAR payment to school districts, I think of it as a portion of your tax levy. So it's money, it's an exemption for your local property owner, and the state will basically pay for that exemption through the STAR program, an application to the state that we make. And so it's sort of like the state's portion of the local tax levy. So the governor is including this like regular state aid, and it sort of muddied the waters a little bit. The STAR amount was also used in one of the formulas, which made it even more confusing. And then finally, the status of transportation aid claims for the current year and even next year is a little uncertain. I've spoke about this in the past where the New York State Ed Department has opined that last year, when we were closed, the only transportation expenses that would be eligible for aid would be expenses associated with delivering meals or technology devices to students, et cetera. No standby, that's the term we're using, standby costs would be eligible. So that would be really significant for us. It would be really significant for most school districts. And again, it's uncertain at this point. We're up in the air on this. So this is the actual state aid reports that we use and that are generated from the state. And you can see here Monroe-Woodbury is in this column, and this is page 187 of like a 151-page document. And I look at that and I think old mainframe days, right, of a big mainframe in the back room, written in Fortran. It's a very antiquated report, and it's sort of an antiquated system that we deal with. But the way you look at or interpret this report, here's Monroe-Woodbury, and the upper half of this column shows the current year, and the lower half of the column, you see this, it says 2021-22 estimated aids is here. And the one thing I wanted to point out about this, and I alluded to this earlier, is the 21-22 aid is really projected aid. So it's projected based on the governor, at this point, the governor's proposal, and you see at the top of that it says executive budget proposal, which is subject to change. And I would say it may be likely to change based on the developments at the federal level. And it's also based on the projections that the school district makes in the summer about what we're going to spend in the current year. And this is especially true, and in the next slide I'm going to show you an adjustment that we've made. It's especially true with in our case, transportation aid. It's especially true with, it's hard to read here, but it says public excess high cost aid, private excess cost aid. So those are two aid programs directed at special education expenses. So, and I've talked about this formula before. If we have a very high cost student or situation, there's sort of like a deductible almost, like if it's $100,000 in expense, we deduct $40,000, and then an aid ratio is applied to the balance to generate that public and private high cost aid. So that can be year to year, have a lot of variation, and these aid projections, again, are based on averages or, in some cases, the The expenses, as I said, are based on what we think we're going to spend for the upcoming year. The year hasn't even started yet. So they're not set in stone, and often these will come out. You'll see a story in the newspaper about it. And, it's subject to change, right? I mean, that's the one takeaway here. And there's different philosophies. If you know that there's something happening, you can adjust it, and that's what we've done. We've looked back and we know that some of these have been a little high, so we're gonna take it back a little bit. So that's the state aid report, the run that we see. This is a schedule that just shows our projection for state aid for next year. So I'll just begin here. These are the aid categories. I mentioned foundation aid. This is the new block grant, the services aid. That's why there's only an entry for the 21-22 column. This is our current year, 2021. We have our BOCES aid. These are the two aids I just alluded to, the high cost, excess cost, and private excess cost aid related to special education expenses. These are instructional material aids, transportation, high tax, which is kind of a fixed number for us. And then this line, local district funding adjustment, I mentioned this. This is the cut in aid, and then this is the CARES restoration, and this is a net value. And finally, we have our building aid, and this line here is Monroe-Woodbury state aid adjustment at $900,000. This adjustment, again, subject to change based on the final approval of the state budget, but this is what we believe at this moment the appropriate adjustment would be based on what we've seen with transportation and some of the excess cost aids. So it's $53.3 million. In the current year budget, the one thing I wanted to point out, and this is good for us, is that we made an adjustment, if you remember last year, of about 6%, a reduction of 6% to all of these aid categories with the exception of building aid, because we were faced with, at the time, up to a 20% cut. The governor, the pandemic was rolling out, the state budget was in shambles, we didn't know what was going to happen, their revenue was impacted. They were projecting, over 4 years, a $64 billion deficit. So the governor had left that out there as a possibility, that we could have a cut in the current year of up to 20%. So we, as a hedge against uncertainty, reduced our aid by about 6%. So what that meant was we had to assign more fund balance. If you recall, we doubled the assignment in fund balance in the current year from 1.9 million to 3.8. And what this means is if this reduction does not come to pass, now we still have the transportation uncertainty that I just talked about, we may generate more state aid in the current year than we had budgeted for. So that's the good news. The final line here, I just tie this back out to the state aid run, and you can see if we go back that, here, Monroe-Woodbury, the current year compared to this projection year is showing a $961,000 increase in aid. And I just show that to tie it back to the actual aid report. So here is our budget triangle. I've showed this in the past. It is I know Dr. Hassler's fond of this. Helps him understand. It's a graphical representation.
Breaks it down at a basic level for me.
Of our budget, and it's a triangle with equal sides, and it's a nice representation where we have our revenue here, we have our appropriations, our expenses on the right-hand side, and based on that, we have our instructional program in the base of the triangle. So I won't take too much time with this, but I just wanted to point out, so what I've done here is I'm showing the state aid projection at $53.3 million. We're showing our tax levy basically at the levy, the maximum allowable limit, $127,079,000, miscellaneous other forms of revenue. And so we bill other districts for tuition. There are health services, the rental of the Harriman Center. All these things generate miscellaneous other revenue. It's not big dollars, but that leaves us with $182.8 million. If we look at our appropriation side, our budget side, and we just take the current year budget multiplied by 2%, it gives us $187.6 million. And again, hypothetically, this is subject to change, based on state aid, based on the increase to the budget, but in this hypothetical example, this leaves us with a revenue shortfall of $4.8 million. So this was a similar situation we were in last year. How do you deal with that revenue shortfall? You can assign fund balance, which most districts do every year. You can use reserves, and reserves are, like our rainy day funds, right, with particular designated, uses. We can update our revenue when we have better numbers on our state aid. That may go up. And finally, you can make cuts to the budget, the appropriation side of things, to maintain this equality. But I don't want people to panic, but I just want to roll out, this is where we are at the moment. And this is where we start to dig in. And we're not done on the appropriation side of the budget yet. We're not done with state aid. But I anticipate we will need to assign fund balance like we always do, and maybe at a slightly higher level than we're accustomed to. And we may need to tap into our reserves again. Not proposing we're going to spend everything down, but this is the kind of situation where you use your reserves, in these circumstances where these are just really difficult times. So I'm going to shift gears here for a moment, and in a moment I'm going to talk about the buildings grounds budget, but I just wanted to just briefly, and it'll be very quick, review a budget code, right? And so I call this the anatomy of the budget code. A budget code has 4 parts. The function code is the first 4 digits, an object code, a location code, and a program code. So the function codes, the object codes are for the most part dictated by the Office of the State Controller. It's sort of our chart of accounts. In general, a function code that begins with a 1 indicates an administrative function, and the function codes identifies the functional area of the organization. We're going to talk about buildings and grounds. We're going to talk about printing and data processing. A 2 in the beginning of the function code indicates an instructional area or teaching. And you can see these are all areas that we're going to talk about tonight, involve instruction. And finally, and these are just examples, 55 indicates transportation. We're going to talk about transportation tonight. In terms of the object code, it's sort of the object of the expenditure. Codes that begin with a 1 are salary codes. A 2 is an equipment code. A 4 can be almost anything contractual, that kind of thing. 480 is textbooks, 490 BOCES, 501 supplies in our case. Location codes are unique to Monroe-Woodbury, and the program code is also unique to the local school district. And a program code allows you to have even more specificity with your budget codes, for instance, and or link different functional areas together. For instance, under transportation, we have a code with a program code that links it back to interscholastic athletics. So you can actually see that there's a portion of transportation and an expense associated with interscholastic athletics. So that is the anatomy of a budget code. We're going to roll into buildings and grounds. I won't go through all this, but the objectives of buildings and grounds operationally, obviously maintain a high level of cleanliness and maintain our buildings in a good way. Maintain safe and healthy buildings. That's one of the primary things. We want to invest in our capital assets, our buildings, because it is an investment, and you want to maintain that investment so you don't have higher expenditures later on if you let things go too long. Replace equipment that's no longer serviceable or reliable, and finally I have conserve energy. We have an energy conservation program in the district to enable to avoid waste and enable those resources to be diverted back to the classroom. In terms of the budget for next year, there are a handful of renovation projects in the budget, and I'm going to go into that. I'm going to show you where those are in a little bit more detail, but we're talking about installation of library partition enclosure at the high school, replacing the weight room floor in the high school, middle school, replace the weight room flooring. North Main, replace some flooring in classrooms. Pine Tree, a little bit more. We're doing a little bit more there. You'll see that in a moment. Replace main office flooring and stage lighting. Central Valley, refinish the gym floor. And then district-wide, we're not forgetting about Smith Clove and Sapphire. Some of that district-wide money, there's about $40,000 in a district-wide code, will in all likelihood be allocated to those buildings. In terms of equipment requests, We have a plow truck with a sander, typical things that we buy every year, backpack vacuums, a floor burnisher that's not bought every year. I think we're buying 2 ride-on, or we're proposing to buy 2 ride-on floor scrubbers, and then some equipment for the maintenance of the synthetic turf field. And I just have a little box down here. Why are these things important? Because studies show that the physical environment impacts learning. If the building is clean, if it's bright, if things are orderly and in good shape, kids feel better, staff feels better, they learn better. I mean, studies have shown that to be the case. And we try to convey that to our buildings and grounds staff. I try to anyways. I say, you play, or you can play, an important role in learning and in the educational process. It may not feel like it, you're not in front of the kids day in and day out like a teacher would be, but your role is important. So we'll roll right in here to the overview of the budget. And what I have here, this is 1620. That's the Buildings and Grounds, or also known as Operation and Maintenance Functional Code. And within this functional area, we use the program code to differentiate 6 categories. It's management, custodial, grounds, maintenance, building improvements, and utilities. And so I just wanted to give you the high-level overview. We're looking at a budget-to-budget increase of about 1.27%, relatively low, in line with the levy increase that we're going to live with next year. The other thing I wanted to mention, although this budget, we're not talking about staffing components of budget tonight. We do that at a later meeting. I just wanted to show the FTEs, the full-time equivalent for the Buildings and Grounds Department, the staffing. So we have 4.5 people in the management area, and that half person is our energy conservation specialist, 57 custodial positions, 8 grounds positions, and 9 maintenance positions. And this is, literally components from the budget. And I didn't mention this, but we had provided budget reports to the board, through board docs. So these are, line item budgets would align with those reports that you have. I highlighted this here. This is $90,000, $11,000 increase. This is under the 1500 program code, which is management. This will fund the building condition survey for next year, which is something that we do every 5 years. We've talked a lot about that in our facilities committee and visitation committee. Overall, there's nothing too unusual happening here. We go to the maintenance budget. Again, this is an 1800 program code for maintenance. So the maintenance budget is where our maintenance mechanics, maintain our buildings, repair buildings, do small renovation projects. There's a lot of supplies that fall under this budget. As you can see, one of the things here is $90,000 for and this is a 200 equipment code for the plow truck with a sander. So that's equipment requests that we have. The other thing I highlighted here is this building control monitoring system. So this is money for the building management system. So it's a Honeywell system. We also use Siemens to control temperature setbacks in the building, the air that's brought into the buildings. It's all automated system. And, we have staff on site every week, from Honeywell and Siemens to maintain these systems. It requires a lot of work and effort, and it's a fairly large budgetary item. Moving on to the building improvements. So we covered this to some degree, but you can actually see the budgeted amounts here. So the high school, we're proposing $65,000 for the partitions and weight room flooring, $14,000 for the middle school, $60,000 for North Main, Pine Tree is $83,000, CV is $40,000, and then district-wide another $40,000. And I don't know why this paint supply should be in here. I think we need to maybe tweak that budget code a little bit. In terms of the utilities, again, the only thing I would highlight or point out here is you notice this in this sewer charge. We're going from $368,000 to $48,000. We have this sort of massive $320,000 decrease. But you notice down here under property taxes, we have a $360,000 increase. And what that has to do is just it basically pays for charges that we incur for sewer. We're wholly exempt from property taxes, but we are liable for charges for the capital portion of I think the water and sewer system. So it's just a way to break it out and have a little more specificity instead of a single code having two codes here. But other than that, I go back to the final line here, which is a little hard to see, and this is what I started with the overview. We're looking at a 1.27% increase in buildings and grounds, or about 58,600. So relatively modest increase there on the, I'll call it the stuff budget. Doesn't include the staffing, which we'll do at a later date. So any questions? I know I covered a lot. I tried to cover it relatively quickly because I know we've been here for a while, but any questions on that?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I'll just welcome up Dr. Vargas, who's going to cover the technology area.
Good evening, Board of Education members, Mrs. Rodriguez, my colleagues. I want to start this presentation with a big thank you to our parents. Our parents are really an extremely good supporter this year for their child education, especially in time of this ever-changing landscape. They have stepped up, especially in the younger kids' parents, and supporting the technology at their home. We have distributed so many devices this year, and we would not have done a really good job without their support. So thank you to parents. I also want to thank our teachers, administrators, and other support members. Last year, this time, their world has changed also upside down, but they have risen to the challenge. They have supported our students, our parents, also learned new technology tools on the fly, and sometimes I have seen our teachers using the Google Meet on 1, 2, 3, 4 screens. So they really have stepped up to the challenge, so big thank you to them. Technology budget, so this typically starts in October, November. It's a very collaborative effort to work with the department chairs, teachers, technology committees, principals, ultimately my colleagues, and it ultimately goes to Mrs. Rodriguez. So it kind of starts at a very lower level in terms of the working with everybody, and then ultimately it becomes a common process for all of us to follow. So I want us to take it back. I know we always refer to March 2020, but really there was another major event in our district that was in September 2019, about a year and a half ago, that we were hit with the cyber threat at that time. And we were, I don't want to say we were prepared, but we were working towards, before the cyber threat happened, we were working towards moving a lot of solutions and data into the cloud at that time. So we had done a lot of homework, and when this cyber threat hit us, though it was not a good situation, that allowed us actually an opportunity to kind of push a process that we were looking to do a 3-year process of moving a very critical infrastructure systems into the cloud. That became a 3-week process. So what we end up doing is because we had done a strategic planning a little bit before, it helped us to make a quick decision in a very, very short time. And ultimately, we end up moving our mission-critical infrastructure and support systems like WinCap, PowerSchool, Versatrans, and our food services system, Titan. What happened during that time, basically, the data that was actually infected here, we cleaned in-house and ultimately moved to the individual vendor cloud-hosted environment. So taking that steps about 18 months before basically helped us to kind of set the step in the right direction, and ultimately help us moving into the I don't want to say future, but into the more secure environment, because now the only data that sits inside our network is basically our basic file servers. A lot of instructional data is in the Google Cloud, but the mission-critical data that is always now going to be in the vendor-hosted cloud. We work with them very side by side. We support their infrastructure, and ultimately, they help us to make sure that the data is also secure. Some of the other tasks that we have done, so right before the cyber threat happened, we finished our disaster recovery plan. This was in May 2019. And that was also a helpful step for us. When the cyber threat happened, we knew where is our data and what to do with the data, what kind of the data that is doing. So just knowing that piece, it helped us to take an action immediately. Since then, we have updated our disaster recovery plan and incident response plans. It's actually in a very final stage now, because if you notice that we did the disaster recovery plan when all the systems were in-house. This was prior to cyber threat. Now, fast forward, a lot of our systems are in the cloud. So we need to make sure that we are aware and adaptive to the disaster recovery plan. And what I mean by disaster recovery plan is just doing some tabletop exercise. So we are working with our third-party vendor and obviously the technology team to make sure that we have a decent understanding. The scenario could be, what happened when there is no MCC building? What happened when there is no internet at the MCC building? So for example, high school is our backup. But then what happened when there is no MCC and there is no high school? How do we make sure we run the process of payroll? How do we make sure that the teachers will be able to access the data in the power school? So those kind of the scenarios. So right now, as a year one, we are planning that kind of the scenario as what we call internally a tabletop exercise. So in the next couple of months, we'll be working on doing a tabletop exercise with our vendor. This helps us tremendously to kind of set our mindset to say, this is going to happen. It just, we need to be better prepared, and also it improves our reaction rate of when this situation really happens, we are prepared. Very similar to when we do the fire drills in the building. That's similar to what we call in technology, the tabletop exercise, clear to fire drill. We're also in a final stage of testing email encryption tool. This is one of the unfunded mandate requirement from New York State that we are all required now to make sure all our data that we all our personally identifiable data that we put in the email that has to be encrypted. So we are testing that internally. This is also help us to be better secure our data. We do a phishing campaign. I'm sure you guys have received a few times a year a phishing campaign, whether it's a free Dunkin' Donut coffee or it's a free Subway sandwich. And typically we try to do around specific time. This helps us to kind of shift our internal culture and thought process of all our internal stakeholders. Just to give you the example, so we do 3 to 4 times a year. The industry rate of the phishing campaign is about 17.5%. As of now, the Monroe-Woodbury rate is 15.2%, means 15% of our employee has opened that email. Our goal ultimately next 3 to 5 years, I would love to see that data under 1 digit. Because then it's help us to think about really, is this a legit email? Is this the sender that I know? So not only we are putting the infrastructure solution in place, but also we are working internally to shifting the culture, the way we think, the way we open the email. And now, the last email campaign, I was actually very pleased to see some of the folks reached out to us and say, hey, just to let you know, this is the email that I got. I didn't open it. I'm just forwarding to you. So that's kind of shifting the internal culture. Since September this year, we also have implemented mandatory cybersecurity training. So it's a 90-minute training that every single employee has to take. It's a three section of 30 minutes. This gives all of our internal team members just the idea of what is the compliance piece, what is the policies, what are the solutions that we have placed in. And we had I would say, 12 users, and we ultimately end up closing their closing their network account. Because to us, I think it's just not only creating the awareness, but helping the employee to understand the value. And the beauty of this process is it's not helping just us as a school district. This is the same thing in their personal life as well. So if they see the email in their personal Gmail account that is from a weird email address, now they're able to spot that. So this is more on a data privacy and cybersecurity side. The other part of the Law 2D compliance piece is the Nist cybersecurity framework. So in January 2020, state has adopted what it's called Law 2D Part 121. And what that means for a school district is now we are required to make sure that we are not only providing all the mandatory trainings, putting the encryption tools, we also have to adopt the Nist cybersecurity framework. And what is basically the Nist CSF? Nist is a National Institute for Standards and Technology. They have developed a specific cybersecurity framework. And this is standard for all the industry. This is not just for education. What it does for us is basically it requires us to, as a school district, to vet every single vendor that we do the business with, whether it's the student management system, our financial management system, food services area, and we had to go through their 458 controls that are set up by this system, by vendor. So we have started that process last year. We are very close to finish with our two major systems, which is the WinCap and PowerSchool. And the next two vendors that will be working will be Frontline and Titan. Frontline, we have 7 different solutions from Frontline, and we have our food services system called Titan. So we'll be working with the directors for internal directors for special education, obviously assistant superintendent for HR, Mr. Kravitz, and our food services director, Mr. Anson, on that. We have also developed since last year and a half a significant process of vetting the software and the data privacy agreement. Kudos to, again, our teachers and our administrators. This process was implemented about close to 16, 17 months before, right before the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, a lot of vendors were providing up freebies to a lot of education institutions. What they were not clear to say that this is free, but it might collect the data. And thanks to our teachers, because we have implemented this process internally, the teacher would fill out the specific form, and they will list what is the purpose of the system, what the type of the information that they are going to use, what kind of the privacy policies that the vendor had. Then this process goes to the principal or the director, and then they approve it, and then it comes to technology department. And we vet that process or that vendor to make sure that, is this vendor on Nist compliance? Is this vendor collecting the data? What happens to the data when we don't want to do the business with that vendor? So educational data it's a very significant value right now in a private business or private market. Now, all this process of Nist, we actually use a tool called Symetric, and we actually track our internal progress in the Symetric. It helps us to kind of keep that, what is the 3-year or 5-year look like for Monroe-Woodbury? So that's kind of a two bigger initiative in terms of data privacy and cybersecurity and Ad Law 2D. Again, cybersecurity is an ongoing process. It's not one and done. We had to constantly keep that in mind. I'm sure you might be aware about the biggest hack in the US history, SolarWinds, and now the Microsoft hack is also getting there. It's not really targeted to the educational institution, but last year alone, there were close to 500 school districts were actually hit with ransomware. So it is a real threat. It used to be that education was number 4 and 5 in terms of priority from the cyber attack. Now it's actually number 2. Right after the financial and government institution, education is right there because the folks are realizing that this can be a lucrative business to get the money. So technology initiatives that boost the pandemic response. Thanks to Board of Education's quick approval last March and Mrs. Rodriguez's support, we were able to swiftly order the devices for all our students in March. We put our purchase order in April, and we had, by the end of May, we had our devices, and then we started rolling out one-to-one over the summer. At the end of the summer, 99.5% of our students had their own devices. And that was very strategic from Board of Education, from your and Mrs. Rodriguez's perspective, because that part, every single the school district in the US followed that process. And some of the school districts still, they got the devices in last November, so almost 7 to 8 months before, 8 months after the school. So we were very strategically planning in that process. Technically, the one-to-one initiative was in summer 21, but you approved that, and it helped us tremendously to kind of improve the instruction in the classroom. Some of the other add-ons that we implemented, like we purchased the G Suite Enterprise license that allows our teachers to use and record the Google Meet and use all the new features of Google Meet. Screencastify, that's another instructional video creation tool. Just to give you the idea, Screencastify, we started using this in September. Since then, our teachers and students have created close to 6,700 videos. So it's been widely used. We have purchased about 125 hotspots, and we are providing to the families who truly need that. We have actually working with high school for a platform called Code HS. Last year, we actually, well, 2 years before, we have started offering the AP Computer Science in the high school, and right now there are 2 sections. So they use this Code High School as a platform. The kids are able to do the programming in Python, and then ultimately they can run the full compiler on our Chromebook because the Code HS is a web-based tool. We have provided the certification vouchers to our teachers and TAs. We have about close to 100 teachers and TAs who are Google certified, either level 1, 2, or trainer certification. We have implemented multi-factor authentication to protect our critical data. We have reduced the copier, and I'll discuss a little bit more briefly in the next couple of slides. We also have increased the internet bandwidth because we went from 3,000 devices to 11,000 devices. So when devices comes back, and if everything is online, we want to make sure that all the infrastructure that we have in place strategically, we're compatible with the 10 gig infrastructure. Before the pandemic, our bandwidth was 1 gig. Right now it's 3 gig, and we are keeping an eye on it. Our internal bandwidth between the high school and MCC as our primary and a secondary location is 10 gig. We are constantly monitoring that and assessing the need, whether it needs to be reduced or it needs to be increased. Typically, it always goes up. We have also mounted the wireless access point outside each school building's main parking lot. And we learned this in pandemic that we had some school buildings that the kids were actually, even during the pandemics, were bringing their devices and just hanging outside the school buildings because they didn't have the internet at home. So this truly helped us to kind of think it through and with the support of building principals, we identified these locations and mounted the access points so the kids can actually come before, during, or after, and use the internet on a school-assigned device. This will also help us when the weather is good outside, when weather is good eventually, to bring some of the classes outside in the main parking lot. So preliminary technology recommendations. So every year, we try to improve internal efficiency and work with a business office to see how can we improve what we are doing, whether it's in terms of budgeting, whether it's in terms of spending the money or reallocation of the appropriate fund. So this year, working with obviously Mr. Cahill and Mrs. Mulrad, we were able to reprocess all the budget codes. And what I mean by that, up to this point, we were kind of doing the instructional and non-instructional budget all together in a mixed bag. This year, so for the next year, our goal is to design the budget codes that are clean in terms of instructional use and non-instructional use. And it helps us to kind of realign that with the ST3, which is ultimately business office complete that for the state aid purposes, as well as this will help us in terms of what is the aidable expense versus non-aidable expense. So you will see a drastic difference, and the main reason is to kind of realigning the code. So in 2630 in the instructional code, it's down by 14%, but then data processing code is up by 56%. And that is mainly, it's not a one-to-one swap, it's mainly due to the realignment of the updated budget code. This also includes some of the data processing, as I mentioned earlier, email encryption tool that is added to this. We are using local live that is added piece to the data processing. We are eventually, we will be changing our website that is added expense to that for the next year. So those are added to the 1680 code. So that's why you see it's not exact swap, apple-to-apple swap, but it's also a little bit added more to that line item as well. Our library media budget, 2610, that's a little bit down. So when we combine the top 3 codes, the increase in technology budget is 1.06%. 1670, the central printing code, What we have done up to this year, in last 5 years, we have implemented the batch system, we have implemented really the accountability process, and that has actually helped us tremendously reduce the printing budget. If I only compare the printing maintenance budget 3-4 years before till now, it's down about 41%. So what we did this year working with the business office, that instead of budgeting the central printing in every single school building item, we kind of centralized that expense. Because what happened during the pandemic is, obviously the copiers were not in use except the central printer copy, Education Central, which is we call the central printing location, that printer was always used because we were still printing some of the packets for our students. Now, ultimately, our goal is to kind of combine that into the one budget line item. So then it's easier for us to run the reports. It's easier for us to manage that budget instead of managing 10 different budget codes. This will be just the one budget code. So I wouldn't be able to give you the comparison of last because it's not apple-to-apple comparison, but just from a maintenance perspective, the budget is down actually 41%. But the central printing line item is going to be about $356,000 or $357,000. This is a snapshot of technology in the district, and you can see that like we obviously use the smart products. We have smart panels and smart boards around the district. We have the server switches, one-to-one devices. So our K1 students have the iPads. Our 2 to 12 grade students have the Chromebooks. So the total devices that we have in the district is about close to $11,000. I pulled the same slide from 2017-18 budget year. It was actually less than 4,000. So we grew in the last 3 years from supporting 4,000 devices to close to 11,000 devices. So that's a significant improvement, as well as the infrastructure support. We also work with the Smart School Bond. So this has helped us tremendously, and this is mainly due to our one-to-one initiative. These slides talk about, we use a tool called School Dude for our support staff, and what we have done for our parents is the Google form. What is different this year is last March, when we started rolling out the device, we recognized actually the value of partnering with the parents, at least even though we were providing a lot of support to our students when they were in the house. Now, when there are no kids in the building, how do we work with them if they have a trouble issue? So we opened the help desk for our students and parents. And just to give you the comparative idea, in 2018-19, we closed about 3,200 tickets. In 2021, the current school year, the same timeline, the teacher support or the staff support is about close to 3,000 tickets, and the parent or student support is 3,600. So we grew from supporting 3,200 tickets to close to 6,700 tickets. And this is really a chart of showing that obviously when the kids come back in September, October, the volume is high, and then kind of it plateaued, and then it goes up a little bit in January, and then it kind of slows down. But that's kind of a picture to give you the idea of what support looks like for our students, staff, and parents. Library media, supporting big support from a Board of Education to kind of change our library media. Our libraries are becoming flexible learning spaces. In last 3 years, we have actually updated Sapphire, Northman, and Smithclaw. And it's just not a library, it's becoming it's almost like a vibrant hub of every building. And it doesn't change much whether it's in a remote environment or it's in a hybrid environment. So you see some of the pictures of the Sapphire and Smithclaw, and then at the bottom it's Northman. The next school year we are planning to actually change the libraries to the more flexible learning spaces in the Pine Tree building. Some of the instructional side of the highlights for libraries. Libraries basically are becoming a common place for staff and students. This is a big thank you to all our librarians and their clerical support staff. They have stepped up big time because when we roll out Chromebooks and when the student has forget the Chromebook or the Chromebook is in repair, we have set up some sets of Chromebooks. It's ranging from 30 to 60 Chromebooks as a loaner Chromebook. So the student can go and actually take the Chromebook while the device is being repaired. Just to give you one example, this year in October, we started using an app or a website, an app called Sora. This is an online ebook solution. Since October, our students have signed out close to 6,500 books. So libraries are humming. They are doing a really good job of supporting our students, even though it may be in the remote or hybrid environment. And the last but not the least, big thank you to MCC team. They've been really, really supportive. Technology coaches, computer TAs that are assigned in all the buildings, and AV support staff. They have stepped up big time in this ever-changing landscape of technology. And thank you. Any questions?
I assume that devices have a certain shelf life before they become no longer useful.
Yes.
We're one-to-one now. What's the amount of devices we're going to be looking to purchase? And I assume it would be an ongoing basis?
It is, yeah. So thank you. That's a great question. So yeah, so we have a really strong device replacement plan, and we are looking to buy average 12 to 1,500 Chromebooks every year, with only one caveat is last April we purchased 3,000 Chromebooks in one shot, or 3,500. So I'm working with Mr. Cahill to kind of come up with a cycle process that is not financially impacting us. And it's not only the Chromebooks, we have the iPads, we have the back-end servers, we have the switches, we have the wireless access point. So we have a 3 to 5 years technology replacement plan, and so far we are actually sticking to the plan year in, year out. We replace X number of devices every year. Yes, it's going to increase eventually the budget of technology, but as of now, we are okay.
And the devices that become outdated, is there any value to those to be sold off?
Yes.
So any sort of financial?
There's a little bit of help. We have sold some of the devices and then received some of the money, and that goes back to our general fund. We are looking to sell some of our older assets, like the older smart boards and older projectors, and we started utilizing the bidding that our transportation department uses. It's like an online auction tool that a lot of government agencies uses. So in fact, we just listed yesterday a whole bunch of assets that we don't see a value, but we want to try that, see if there is somebody who's going to buy it. But when we sell the older iPads or older Chromebooks, there is a little bit of value that comes back to not significant, but a little bit, yes.
Everything helps, so.
Yes, and our number helps too. Like at some point, we will be replacing 1,000 Chromebook every year. So there will be, even if it's $2, that's $2,000.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Perfect. Now I will invite Mrs. Russell.
Good evening, everyone.
How are you?
I can unmask. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to present to you a proposed 2021 transportation budget. So we continue to strategize to be more efficient and find ways to deliver the best transportation for all of our students. Thanks to the collaboration and the efforts between the transportation and the IT teams, we are excited to include in the budget this year a web-based routing upgrade to our current routing system. What it will allow us to do is to fully integrate with our student management system, which is fantastic because we'll always have the most up-to-date phone numbers and information on our students. We'll know when they've left the district, when the new students have arrived, and so they will work hand in hand, and that's something that we've been really looking forward to. It will create efficiencies. We'll be using one program instead of several, and for an example of that would be Right now, when we have a letter for a bus stop change or something that we need to send to a parent, we have to, save it, and it's cloud-based, so it's like 3 or 4 steps. Then we save it on our desktop as a PDF, and then we attach it to the email, and then this is just to get, but with this new program, we'll be able to do everything internally from inside of one program. Make a change, send the notice, or even send the notice to the parent to say, check your app or your parent portal. It won't be the portal, it'll be called something else, Parent 360. And it also gives us the flexibility to route in unique situations. This was a really challenging year for us. We worked really closely together in the beginning of the year, trying to come up with a plan for our hybrid. And so hopefully we will get back to normal, but in case we do have to make some changes, we'll be prepared to do so in a fashion that will be easier for all of us. This new program will allow us to, eventually, we would like to get it rolling right away, but, it might take a little bit of time, the future rollout where the parent could actually log in and see, I'm not saying that they could see where the whole bus is on the way, but they might be able to see if it's already been to your home or, how many minutes till it will be to your home. And the best news is that there's no significant increase to the budget with this upgrade. Okay, our bus proposition. This year, we'll be asking the board to approve the purchase of 11 vehicles, and those would replace 11 existing vehicles that have traveled a combined total of about 1.4 million miles. And then these will include this year 4 72-passenger buses. They will replace 61 passenger buses, as well as 6 35-passenger vans to replace the same number of 29 passenger vans. So we're trying to get a little more capacity, and 1 wheelchair accessible vehicle. And the bus proposition this year has increased by $38,471. That's equal to about a half of a van, a wheelchair accessible vehicle. So it's not much of an increase. And we always buy our buses. We have a standardized fleet, and we buy our buses from New York State contract. Okay. You know what? I'm going to skip forward a little bit, Patrick, because this one kind of came. We want to go over this one first. Okay, so I know there's a lot of numbers here, but this, I'll just tell the story about this slide is, I think, the best way to do this. The largest increase in the transportation budget this year is in the contract transportation code. The social distancing challenges this year has impacted BOCES, COSER, transportation providers' ability to service all of the component districts in BOCES. And so therefore, they could not provide the number of routes that we anticipated that they would. So that's where you'll see the decrease of $61,658. As a result, we had to find alternative means because the students still need, safe transportation to and from school. And so we had outsourced those runs to a different provider, and that's where you see the addition of the $89,976. And that included a couple of new students that came in that we were not anticipating. Notable this year is the increase in students attending non-public religious schools. Since September, when we started in September, we had 850 students. We had a brand-new RFP for their transportation with a very reputable bus contractor. And since September, we have increased, the number of students have gone up to 1,189 students. That's about a little over 39% increase. So now I know that the building phases of Smith Farms, which is behind ShopRite, and also Woodbury Junction, they're still busy building. We can anticipate, it's an estimate, about another 40% growth. We could easily grow as much as we did this year for next year. So that's where we're anticipating the 18 routes with the contractor RFP would go up to at least 25. And then that's an increase of $514,849. And finally, we're proposing to contract out a limited number of bus runs for the remainder of the non-public school transportation. At the moment, and probably into next year, we do not have the capacity to deliver the level of service that is required. So by carving off this piece of transportation work, such as the non-public schools, that will enable us to, provide the service resources, and when I say resources, I really refer to staff mostly, to focus on our needs for home to school and extracurricular activities, which we've been struggling with. The increase in contract transportation will be offset by decreases in payroll and benefits associated with payroll and other parts of the transportation budget, and that decrease is $461,889. So under this plan, we have no plan to lay off transportation staff. We're simply assigning work that we cannot cover internally to an outside vendor, or looking to share rides with other municipalities, that neighbor our district, perhaps Washingtonville, Warwick, or Midlake. Where our district is located, it's a perfect opportunity to share with other districts because the Thruway, Route 6, and so we're going to explore those options as well. And finally, so here we have an overview of the transportation budget, which is inclusive of payroll. That's not something we normally do at this budget meeting. And then it also includes supplies, and it reflects a decrease of 9.83%. So that decrease is in direct correlation to the outsourcing that I spoke of on the previous slide.
Can you actually go back to the previous slide on the outsourcing?
Sure.
I think I just need some further clarification. Are you...
This one.
Are you stating, are you asking, are you saying that you are contracting out the non-public runs? I'm confused as to...
Well, what we're saying is that we have, every day, we have 20 to 30 routes that are not covered. And we have our dispatchers are working before shift and after shift every single day, driving routes. It's a combination of the driver shortage nationally. It's a combination of attendance and, and we have a great athletic department and a great program for athletics. We could have on any given day anywhere between 5 and 9 or more trips. So if you've got 30 people absent or missing on long-term leaves, now I know this is an exceptional year because it's a pandemic. So we expect that more people are going to be absent than normal. But it's also cultural, and that's pretty, standard. So it's unmanageable now. So if we don't look at doing other, we have to just think about what how can we provide the transportation and the extracurricular work for Monroe-Woodbury students?
And currently, right now,
by outsourcing.
And right now, we're getting it done, you said, by everybody doing a little bit more than...
I'm sorry.
You said right now it's being done by, how are we getting it taken care of?
Well, we have a couple of sources. We have the BOCES COSER, and because of the social distancing, like I said, they couldn't provide all the, we have used them, it predates me, 15 years maybe. This is not new. Contracting out transportation for special needs, especially with the BOCES COSER. And I say that because it's important. We have one run in particular. It's a very high-cost special needs run that we are sharing with 2 other districts right now. So that $100,000 run is costing us a third, and so that's something that's been done here for many, many years. So, we don't want parents to be concerned that their children wouldn't be safe. These are, if and when we get to that point, it would be a reputable provider. We've been doing it, and we'll just maybe do it at a higher level.
And you mentioned a number that I don't see on here, the change in non-public religious schools, you said went from,
Oh, it was, so we started in September, we had 850, and we were really sure of that because, I worked very closely with Tanya Mulrad and Carrie Pigeon, and we we made sure we had the numbers, that they were accurate, because over the growth has been so much that we wanted to make sure we were keeping up with it. And were people coming in and registering or not? Or were they just hopping on the bus? So we've we've tamed that, and we now know how many kids are riding, that they are Monroe-Woodbury children, and that's because we have a reputable contractor doing that work. And now they're up to 1,189 students. So from the beginning of this year, we started with 18 route packages. We have about 20 and a half. And then we know we're going to have more growth before the end of this year. We're getting 4, 5, 6, 10 children every day.
so this slide is not indicative of what's happening right now. This is from.
That would be where, on the non-public religious schools contractor, so the 18 is what we had budgeted for this year, and then the increase would be till 25, approximately, and it's hard to say exactly. And that's,
It could even be more.
that's a big oh, yes, yeah.
So we have the vehicles, we just don't have the manpower to run them.
Right. Right.
And what type of outreaches have you done to try and solicit, individuals, either
Well, we had.
substitute or as
Oh, yes. Well, we're always training. Whoever we can get into, we always have an ongoing training program, always. And even though we just lost our trainer to Warwick School District, we replaced that position, and our new trainer is doing a great job, and she's, out there. We're on Facebook. The district has put a nice ad on Facebook. HR is, done very large ads in local newspapers. We're doing pretty much what everybody else is doing, and then somebody else will do more. Next thing, I just saw in this morning, and I saw an article, they're offering finder's fees for $2,500. And if you come with a CDL, you'll get $1,000. I mean, those are the things that I think with taxpayer money, I don't know that we can actually do that. But there are other things that we can do, and we've talked about them, and we'll be working with the union. The contractors have a leeway that we don't have because of the contract, the driver's contract. So we're limited to what we can do. So if I'm a contractor and I have a route with 4 children going to BOCES, I can hire a Class D driver. That's what and most people have, a Class D driver. And you can get them trained as a bus driver, but they just need to go to DMV and get an N2 restriction, or an endorsement on their license, and they can start driving right away because they've already got a clean, valid license. And so they can buy certain vehicles that could accommodate 4 or 5 children and a monitor, and it's still within a Class D, it's less than 16 passengers, and off they go. And somebody could really be behind the wheel in 3 weeks, where it takes us 12 weeks minimum to get somebody trained to DMV. We have to get favors to go to DMV because you can't get appointments. It takes 2 months to get an appointment. But we are working with Annie Ravitz's office, the county clerk. They help us tremendously getting people in, who would normally have to wait 2 months. So, we really are trying everything that we can, but it just takes time. And then sometimes by the time you have those 2 people ready to go and they're trained, you've lost 3 because they retired or they took a family medical leave. And so we're never really getting ahead of the curve. But we didn't give up. We're still trying.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, that's it on the presentation. If you have any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
everyone.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, item 11, approval of date of annual district meeting, budget vote, and election of board members.
Motion?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Appointment of chairperson and alternate of the annual school district election to be held. The chairperson will be myself, Stacy McCleary, and the alternate is Dan Israedi. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Approval of the legal notice of budget hearing and vote election.
Motion.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The entire resolution is posted, actually, too. It's like 2 pages, so I'm not reading all of that. Resolution to nominate the 2021-2022 Orange Ulster BOCES Board candidates, which is, I'm just going to announce this. It is Michael Bello and Eugenia Pavic to the Orange Ulster 2021-2022 School Board. Motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Committee reports, and I'll go first for policy. We just went over this evening. We had our last policy meeting where we addressed the gender-neutral bathrooms, and I believe we have another policy meeting coming up in the next couple of weeks. If we haven't officially picked a date, I'll make sure we do that so that Donna can post it. Dawn, for visitation?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Cahill on visitation update.
The only thing I was really going to report on is a meeting we had last week on with the insurance adjuster for the New York School Insurance Reciprocal, which is basically our insurance agency, to look at the damage to the synthetic turf field and the track. So we met on Thursday. Andre Rudiak was with us, and Lori Hawk, and sort of looked at everything, assessed it. The next step, we've submitted a claim through NYSER. Everything is in order. The next step would be to enlist local contractors, and using land, we're going to try to use the contractors that actually did the construction and installed the track and the field. We're shooting for Monday to have them come out and actually give us a solid cost estimate. We don't really know at this point, but it's not millions of dollars. It's not $800,000, nowhere near that. So, like I said, Monday we're shooting for that meeting on the field. We were a little held up because of the weather, the snow, and there was some ice on there. But that would be our next step, and I will certainly apprise the board of anything that's happening, thereafter. I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about it. The field repair will be easier and faster. There's less damage, and they can do that in any weather, really. The track repair is a little bit more difficult because it requires, certain temperature, sort of the May-June timeframe. So the rollout would be sort of a temporary repair, so we could use the track, and then a more long-term, aesthetically pleasing fix, like let's say in early June.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. And Lori Hawk, do you mind coming up, Lori, and give us a little update on field usage and I think maybe facilities as well? Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There are 3 items I was asked to speak about tonight. The first is I'll talk about our live stream program very quickly. I know there are a lot of questions about which events we're going to stream. I can not speak about all the events we're going to stream, but I can speak about the sporting events we're going to stream. Just this week alone, over the next 2 days, we'll have 4 events that we are streaming: girls swimming and diving, JV and varsity volleyball, and varsity football as well. Unfortunately, fortunately actually, we did have our first game today in approximately 369 days, but who's counting? We played a JV and varsity girls soccer game today, and it was absolutely glorious. We were unable to stream that event, but I actually received information from the representative at Local Live, and the camera that we need to use on the turf will be here Monday or Tuesday. Surprise, Bargoff, he didn't even know.
Yay, I'm so excited.
So we expect to have that Monday, Tuesday. We don't expect to miss many other games. We are going to have a schedule on our website under athletics, and the schedule. It's our activity scheduler that shows all the games for the district. We're going to have the links embedded right in there, so when people go to the calendar, they can click right on the link and watch it. We've been sharing all of our links with the schools that we're playing against, and we just have a nice partnership going with the people in the section. So that's live stream. Are there any questions before I move on to the next two things? Promise I'll be quick.
No, thank you so much for pushing the camera through.
Yes, and we're trying to get as many lower level events as well, JV and modified. So we're going to do as much as we can. We have one mobile camera, but we will be moving it all over the place.
So I thought that Bargoff said that we didn't have the Wi-Fi capability yet on that plateau. We do or we do not?
No, so the way that the system is designed is we don't have the Wi-Fi capacity in a plateau field as of now, but this camera that we are purchasing, that is a 4G LTE compatible, so it will work on a cell phone, but then we will be able to stream at least the event. We are curious to see the quality, but what the vendor has promised us that it should be the same quality of streaming as well. So it will work pretty much anywhere in the field where we don't have a district Wi-Fi or district network connection available.
Is that a 4G, you said?
4G.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the second topic I'd like to speak about is facility use. We have dozens of community groups who reach out and request space in our facilities. Obviously, it's been very limited over the last year. What we have been saying is we've been going on a month-to-month basis, and we've been reevaluating it. For March, we are not approving any facility use for outside groups. We are going to reevaluate that in April, and here is the expectation. Once we get to April, we will not be entertaining any indoor facility use requests, but we are going to look at the outdoor facility request. We believe that there are quite a few locations that can be used by our community groups. Some of the smaller schools, the fields at the smaller schools and the elementary schools, North Main, Sapphire, and some of the places that are not necessarily on the main campus. The main campus itself is going to be extremely congested because not only are we hosting our own events, but we're also helping some neighboring communities host some of their events as well. Because this pandemic has hit people hard and fields are not ready, and there are just we're trying to be neighborly and help other people out. So we're going to have a packed main campus. We're going to have loads of events every single day, and we aren't going to be able to offer a significant amount of space on the main campus to our community groups. If and when that time comes and the grass fields are ready and we seem to have all the space we need for our athletic programs, then we'll be able to expand that and offer more space to our community groups. The biggest thing is making sure our kids are doing as many activities as they can and taking care of them every way we can. Any questions about that?
Don't think so.
When we do make that decision, we'll obviously make that collectively, and when we make that decision, we'll put it on our website, and we'll also send out emails to all the groups that typically use our facilities.
And when you say lending the space to other, you mean other school districts or other?
There are other school districts who are unable to host competitions, and we are trying to help them out and host them. So if we're playing against them, we might host them here, even if we were supposed to go to their place. But yeah, we're all working together, trying to help each other out, and it's going to work. This is the first day that we have played, like I said, in over a year, and I think things are really heading in the right direction. If anyone was able to be outside on that field today, it was actually pretty emotional.
So it may not be a home game, it's just taking place on our field, right?
Correct. Like, we've already switched some games where we were supposed to be traveling, but we're going to host it because our fields are ready.
So is that a home game for spectators?
Yes, it is, actually. That's a great question. Which brings me to my last topic. The last topic is actually the topic about spectators. And I would love to be able to invite everyone to come and watch every single game and have every parent enjoy seeing their kid play again. Logistically, we're not there yet, and let me explain why. There are three factors that come into play: distancing, personnel, and protocol. And we have to take into consideration all three of those things before we open things up to everyone. Our first priority is our kids, getting our kids out there, getting them to play games. Spectators are nice. It definitely adds to the event itself, but the first priority is our kids. In terms of distancing, if anyone has been to, I'll just give an example of soccer field. We're playing on the plateau field, which we call Field 12, and up on the plateau, there's not a significant amount of space for spectators if you're required to socially distance. And according to New York State DOH, we are expected to socially distance. If you're not within the same family, you must be 6 feet away, and we need to police that. At the soccer game today, there were over 50 spectators, and with the space we have, it is absolutely impossible for us to double that at this time with the social distancing conditions that we need to meet. If you think about a football game, we have approximately almost 60 football players, 30 cheerleaders. We're up to 300 people in that venue without inviting anyone from another community. I have reached out to some people in other communities. For example, Washingtonville, we play them this Friday night. For our varsity football game. And I spoke to someone from the Parents Club, the president of the Parents Club, I believe, and we provided them with the link for the game so that they can watch it. And honestly, our compassion, because we get it, we understand, and if we could do it, we would. The second thing that also comes into play is personnel. I'm sorry.
One question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you expect to see any changes with the new CDC guidelines regarding vaccinated people who should be able to be in the vicinity? So if
Yeah, I think the social distancing, once that's relieved, and our ability to have and I'll talk about the other two people, the protocol and personnel, once those things are, addressed, I can see that happening, absolutely. And I hope that's where we're heading. In terms of personnel, which was the second part I wanted to talk about, it takes a significant amount of personnel to run an event, and if we are the schools that are permitting spectators, and not many of them are, but there are some who are permitting spectators, we're expected to send personnel with our families that go to watch. We don't have a significant number of personnel to send to away trips when we're trying to take care of what we're doing here. Just to give you an example of the different jobs, we have people working game supervision, where people keep an eye on the spectators, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, following protocol. People operating the scoreboard, people doing the book. So there are a number of different jobs, and for every single game, we require those people. We do have a pool of people to pull from. It's not very large. We are trying to, expand it, and we've done a good job with that. But to be able to take care of all of our games at home and then send personnel to other places is a very difficult thing to do. At the same time, other school districts are not able to do that either, which just puts more of a load on us when we're hosting a home event. Fortunately, we have 2 turf fields right now. We're one of the schools that are able to host all the events that we're expected to play. So it's a great thing, but it's a difficult thing to manage sometimes. The last thing is the protocol. I am very proud to tell you that the protocol we have in place for our athletic program is working, and I think we're doing a wonderful job with it. Thanks to our coaches and our students, our student athletes. But I can't guarantee that when other people come from other schools, they're following the same protocols. And that's another concern of mine. So based on those 3 factors, that's why we decided that we would not be allowing visiting spectators at this time. Any questions?
Now I have questions.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the piece about us going to other schools. So they're right. I know there is a short list, but there is a list out there that if I'm going to see my daughter play her varsity soccer game, that I can attend. The statement that you just said, though, you're telling me that if I'm going to that game, Monroe-Woodbury has to send our people there to police us?
There are some schools that are asking for us to send our personnel to their school to take care of our spectators.
Okay, so, but how are they even going to know that at this point? Like, where would I be signing up, let's say, to go and see that game? Like, how is that being, and to that point, my second...
Now you see the dilemma.
Right, because my second piece to that is, and I'm not trying to throw any school districts under the bus, but several of them that are on that list are significantly smaller than we are.
Most of them are.
Okay, so to your statement as far as the social distancing, I mean, and this is just my opinion, our stadium can socially distance a lot more than I would think some of those other smaller school districts are that I'm planning to go to see my daughter play at. So how is it that they're making it work, but our facility that's larger, we can't necessarily seem to accommodate it? I guess that's my question.
It's a valid question. I also want to point out, we have almost 60 players on our football team, just football, for example. We have about 27 on our varsity soccer team. Some schools have 13, some schools have 14, and very few schools are actually having varsity, JV, and modified. We're actually having full modified teams and 2 of each. So we have a lot of kids participating. I think it's close to 600. Just in this season alone. And as we have phased everything in from the beginning of this a year ago, this is something that also needs to be phased in. We can't go from 0 to 100 and not have had a game in 369 days, throw the kids on the field, make them our priority, and then just open it up to everybody. It can't be done. I'm not willing to do that.
But if the distancing gets reduced from the 6 feet to the 3 feet, which rumor has it it will, then we'll be able to offer up visiting
I would
spectators.
absolutely love to do that. Absolutely.
What if,
I'm sorry, Don, hold on just one moment. So Don Beeler is joining us remotely, so I'll have him ask the question, and then Bargoff, would you mind just saying what he says so that everybody can hear the question, please?
Yep. Don, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't understand the reason why we have to police the visiting team. They're on the other side of the field. If, we give them rules, they are required to have masks. They're supposed to distance 6 foot. They're not standing with our people. It seems like it's their responsibility. You don't see this at Walmart. They don't go around policing the thing. It just seems kind of draconian to me. It's not our responsibility to make them follow the rules. They're sitting on the other side of the field. It's their responsibility. It's their health. It just seems to me that we could isolate them on a different side of the field, and we stay with our people. And
we are absolutely 100%
it's their own health
for people on our campus.
Yeah. I think, Mr. Beeler, what Laura just said is that as the host of the event, we're responsible for everybody who's in attendance in that competition. Both spectators, our spectators, or if we allowed outside spectators, as well as the athletes, both our athletes and the athletes that arrive on our facility. They still have to go through a screening process and everything else.
I understand part of that, but we're not responsible for I don't believe we're responsible for their personal behavior outside of fighting or something like that. It just seems like they're responsible for their own personal behavior as far as distancing,
No, as the host organ, and I think that the reason why there are some school districts that are doing it and some that aren't is because I think that other school districts are confronted with the same logistical issues that we are. Particularly a lot of the larger schools, I think, are the ones that are having the biggest issues. As you said, Mrs. McCleary, some of the smaller ones seem to be the ones that are being able to do it, but a lot of the larger ones are the ones that are not being able to do it, again, because of and the personnel piece, where on any given day, how many competitions could we potentially be having going simultaneously on our campus?
We could have between 6 and 8 or 9 on campus on a given day.
Right.
Yeah, I just disagree with the concept that we're responsible for their, behavior of social distancing. You tell them, but if they don't want to do it, it's their own health. I don't see how that falls on our responsibility for them to practice safe. We're not telling them to brush their teeth. We're not, it just seems like their own personal behavior is their own responsibility outside of them inflicting on our students, and if they're on the other side of the field, it just seems like, we're trying to play a little bit of God here.
Well, I think, Lori, I don't know if you can clarify this or not, I believe that we would even be responsible for contact tracing if there was a possible exposure. I
Yes,
think
there's
there would have to be a
Section 9.
list of everybody who's in attendance, and in the event that there's a possible exposure, we would be responsible for contact tracing also.
There's a Section 9 roster form that we need to screen and have contact information for all players, but not so for spectators.
Not for spectators, okay.
So, because I'm just going back to my original example, though, and using the football team, because that is the
Not for the
largest as the
spectators.
example, if our football team, and I don't know their schedule, but if we're traveling to a school that is allowing visitors, that same argument is our 60 boys and our 30 cheerleader girls are going to that team, and if they're allowed, I believe the other schools are still keeping with the 2 people per person. So again, I'm just not sure how a school that's smaller than ours in size is going to accommodate all those people, but our facility that's twice as big as one of those schools can't. I guess I'll have to just see for myself, because I don't.
Yeah, we don't play a ton of small schools either. But it's about 75% of the schools are not allowing visiting spectators through the Mid-Hal and the OCIAA.
And again, that's currently. That's not to say that this is not going to be something
No,
that's.
I would love for this to open up. We're just not there yet. We are not there yet. And in terms of, I need to make sure that schools that are coming to visit us, they're going to do what they're going to follow our protocol. I do not have the personnel to do that. Not right now, I don't. So we have the distancing, the personnel, and the space. 3 significant factors.
Okay. Thank you.
If you have a solution, let me know. I'd be willing to listen to it. I would love to make it work. I know our facilities, I know our people, and I know our limitations. And right now, this is what we can do. And live stream. Don't forget live stream.
Correct, which is at least a bonus. Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. I know that was facilities and visitation that Patrick did. I'm just going to add, I know Don is still on the call, but we do have an audit meeting coming up, I believe, this Thursday. We're meeting Thursday morning, I believe, Patrick, for audit committee?
Is it March 18th? Is it next?
I believe it is, next Thursday. Yes, okay, so hopefully that should, if it's not already on the website, I'll make sure that that's published on the website as well. Okay, so that's committees. Reports by Emily Wong, our student representative.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. Tonight, I want to talk about what I've been doing as the Board of Education student representative to gain a more collective opinion about the concerns of the student body. Before I share that, I'd like to briefly say that Essential Prep's second SAT program is coming to a close this week as the course ends. As far as contacting juniors to take over the program, my answer to that is not yet, because we're still waiting until most juniors have taken tests themselves. It's impossible for them to even start teaching the material until they experience it firsthand. So our absolute main priority right now is making sure the students do their very best on the SAT this weekend, and that's been the program's main focus, so we wish them good luck. Additionally, I just wanted to quickly share some common concerns from staff and students about our asynchronous Mondays being gone. A shared consensus shared by both teachers and students was that Mondays were an extremely good transition from the weekend to online/in-person learning. Many teachers have scheduled their class assignments and tests to revolve around this no-class Monday and are a little bit frustrated that it is going away. One teacher shared with me how because Mondays are gone, the extra helps are after school now, and this impacts her ability to pick up her kids. Moreover, with kids picking either completely in-person or remote, some athletes were conflicted on this non-hybrid decision. Many actually chose to stay home over going into school with fear of having to be quarantined and miss out of their practices. Additionally, the minimal flexibility between going into school and staying home hampers some students' abilities to take care of their siblings, to where the majority chose to stay home as well. However, I'm sure that with the 5 days a week in-person model, we'll soon adapt and appreciate the growing sense of normalcy. I think it's obvious that when adapting this model, there would have to be some sacrifices that come along with it. So, I had a really good meeting with Mr. Cassidy this past Monday, where I was able to ask him personal and high school specific questions like the new honor class revisions and the impact of going in 5 days a week on students. Additionally, we talked about how trying to meet up with the students in other schools in the other districts has been hard for me to coordinate because of COVID. But Mr. Cassidy was able to facilitate setting those meetings up by connecting me with all the principals in the districts, and I'm in the process of meeting with students. I actually had my first meeting today with this small group of 5th graders from Pine Tree. I was immensely impressed by how mature and respectful all of them were. Not only that, but all of them were excited and willing to speak up to all the questions I asked. I really valued their transparency and honesty, and it helped me understand their current situation better. Surprisingly, the students were very optimistic towards online learning, which highlighted their ability to adapt. Students mentioned that the use of breakout rooms was extremely helpful and allowed teachers to fully explain and help students. Almost all the students said that their ability to learn wasn't exactly hindered or a bad experience in this online model, just wasn't comparable to a classic in-person learning experience. But I think that goes for any comparison about online versus in-person learning. No students said they felt uncomfortable unmuting in class. In fact, they were eager to unmute, not only in answering the teacher, but in also helping their peers out, so that's really great. It was also really nice to hear that students said they were able to make some friends online and have even been utilizing FaceTime outside of the class as a substitute for hanging out during recess. Overall, most of the students, with some exceptions, are very excited to go back to 5 days a week in person. I can honestly say that these fifth graders are doing a whole lot of a better job adapting to the online learning experience than students at the high school. They were extremely caring about their teachers and enhancing their online experience to make it seem more like a real classroom. Mr. Martin brought up how an almost silver lining of this pandemic has been that these kids are coming out way more tech savvy than they would have been had we just been in-person learning. I also second that and would even say that the optimism of these fifth graders to make their classroom experience worthwhile has given them skills of communication, confidence, and perseverance that are unparalleled to what they would gain in a normal classroom setting. In-person learning is unequivocally the best learning method, and these kids agreed with that. However, I think that these kids are so strong that they've been able to turn this negative situation into a positive one, and I hope their teachers, parents, and staff members are aware of that. I had an amazing time meeting with them today, and I thank Mr. Martin and Mr. Judice for helping me set this up. I'm currently coordinating a meeting with some North Main students, and I'll be meeting with a lot more students from other schools next week. I look forward to sharing these students' online experience at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. I'll turn it over to Mr. Kravitz from Personnel.
Thank you very much. A couple of things. First of all, we have a large number of retirees on our list for approval tonight. When you add up the number of years, it's 262 years that they've dedicated to the school district, which is a lot of years and a lot of student lives touched. And there are some names on this list that are very familiar to a lot of people because they've been teaching here a long time. You've got union president, you've got, science teachers, you've got, world language teachers and teaching assistants and such. But I just want to point out one person whose retirement date will be earlier than the end of June, and that's a woman by the name of Deb Ziblet. And if you don't know her, because you may not, she's a school monitor. So she is somebody that when I started here as the principal of the high school for a year, there were two school monitors in particular that everyone said, hey, look, just so you know, they kind of represent a lot of what the high school is all about. It was Deb Ziblet and Debbie Perez. And, she's not somebody who gets a ton of fanfare, but I just wanted to especially recognize her. She's a good lady, a wonderful, addition to this high school and just represents so much. So I do want to just make sure I mentioned her. And welcome to our newly hired, or hopefully soon to be newly hired people. And with that, I just ask for approval of the items listed under personnel.
May I have a motion?
I motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll pass it to Patrick for business and financial.
Yes, so I would also respectfully ask for the approval of the items under the business financial section of the agenda. It's a budget transfer and 2 contracts for board approval.
I just have a question first. I don't see the reports or donations listed this month. Is there a reason?
Well, the reports are done monthly,
Right.
so they would be at the next meeting. And I think this time there are just no donations to go in.
Okay.
Motion.
Thank you. Motion. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, I think I'm missing something here. Oh, yes. Committees on Special Education and Preschool Education, 19.1 to 19.4. May I have a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Reports by board and central office. Sergey? I put him on the spot every time. I'm so sorry. I'm going to start with Barbara. I'm going to start doing like
reports by board. You can just speak from the cuff. You don't have to log on to anything.
You always put me on the spot.
I'll come back to you.
Yeah,
I'll give you a moment. I'm sorry. I'm going to start, next time I'm going to start with Dawn, so she'll know.
I'd like to thank everyone that presented and the parents and the members of the community that came out and spoke to us tonight. You know, your feedback is definitely appreciated, and thank you for coming. And then I also would like to give a special recognition to the administrators that are here tonight to say thank you for your weekly board reports. They're very, I look forward to them every week, especially the ones that have pictures and videos, and you all know who you are that send pictures and videos. It's great to see the kids, so thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to say congratulations to all the inductees this past week at the high school. I think there was like 131, which is the largest group, or one of the largest groups. And have a good night. Thank you, and welcome to the new staff as well.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sergey.
I just wanted to thank all the parents that came out today. The level of engagement and the questions definitely speak to our community being actively involved in our children's education, which is great to see. I wish everybody stays healthy. I would like to extend my good luck to our varsity athletes that are competing now, and I hope everybody stays healthy.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all the people who raised questions and concerns. Thank you for coming out. We really do listen to your comments. I'd also like to thank Dr. Hassler, Mr. Casti, and Mr. Marcy. I'm pronouncing Misano, for their presentation and clarification on the expansion of the honors program. And thank you to Mr. Cahill, Dr. Valles, and Ms. Russell for the budget presentations. I also had an opportunity to log in and observe the National Honor Society inductions, and it's awesome. Congratulations to everyone. I'd like to offer my good luck wishes to the students taking the SATs, and welcome back all our athletes to their sports. And have a good night.
Thank you. Emily, anything else?
I just want to thank everybody. I think that things are slowly but surely going back to normal. I think we could all appreciate that. So I just want to thank everybody for their hard work in making that happen.
Thank you. Donna?
I just wanted to say that if anyone is interested in running for the board for the May 2021 election, please contact me. I have board packets available. And if you have any questions, feel free to call, email, or stop by the Ed Center.
Thank you. Argov?
Congratulations to all the retirees, and good night.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, before I go to Dr. Hassler, does Don want to say anything? Oh. I just feel bad because I see him there.
I can hear every other word, so, I'll pass. Okay. Probably can't hear me well either.
Thank you. I just didn't want to slight you. Dr. Hassler?
Same as what everybody else said. Congratulations to everybody appointed. Congratulations to all the retirees. I too attended the NHS induction last week, so congratulations to all of the students that we were finally able to get them in. I know that there was a little bit of a delay, but we got it done, so thank you to everybody. I too want to thank parents for not only the parents who came to speak, but also all of the parents who reached out who have questions about some of the things that we are working on. And that's not even just related to the honors, it's related to the reopening. It's questions asking for additional information as they consider, please make sure that you get those questionnaires in. And people are really looking for as much information as they can get. So thank you to everybody for reaching out. Certainly I encourage anybody who may have additional questions after tonight's presentation or other questions about reopening to continue to reach out. I'm happy to provide as much information as I possibly can. And with that, I wish everyone a good night.
Thank you. Patrick?
Yeah, I just want to thank my colleagues for the work they've done in the budget development process. I'd like to give a special thanks to business office staff, Shonda, Merrill, Kathy Fico, my secretary, and Tanya Mulrad for their work in the budget development process. And have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you. Matt?
So one thing I just want to mention is one of the important parts to reopening, anything in the coming weeks has to do with the receiving of vaccines, particularly for our staff members. So I do want to just briefly let people know that, as we get links and we get information, we're trying to get people signed up as quickly as possible. So whether it's somebody who says, oh, look, I heard this place has them, or get people over there. An example is Walgreens of Monroe this past Friday night reached out to somebody. We got a text and email, and we immediately started to reach out to some of our staff members. Our hope is to have as many people vaccinated as possible. We don't have people coming onto the school district grounds to get vaccinated. We don't have any programs like that. But between the local pharmacies, the local hospitals, and then the local state venues, we've sent people and given them links to, as far away as the Javits Center. They've been able to get appointments. At this point, I can safely say we have a lot of our people that have either had full vaccinations, one dose, have scheduled appointments, and those people who are still looking for appointments, we're filling those up. As I was sitting here, I got a text from Dr. Sassy who said, oh, we have another 20 appointments. Let's try to get people set up. So she'll work on that tomorrow to get people, to get shots in the arms as early as tomorrow. So it's a great thing for us. So with that, I say good night.
That's great. Thank you so much. Michael?
I want to thank everyone for the presentation tonight. They were really helpful, and wish everyone a great evening.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yes, thanks to the presenters, thanks to the people in the community who got up and spoke. We definitely hear you. And congratulations to all the National Honor Society members and our athletes, and have a good night.
Thank you. Dan?
Have a good night.
Thank you. Elsie?
So I'm going to be a little long-winded, so I apologize. Congratulations to our honorees inductees. Welcome back to our athletes. A big thank you to our coaches and to Lori Hawk for the work that they're doing to make sure that our children, almost 600 students, are participating in sports. And it's really a tribute to the coaches and Ms. Hawk and the work that she does. Congratulations to our retirees. A thank you to our presenters. Thank you to our parents, because I think that one of the most important thing is for you to be involved in your child's academic life and life in general, but I think their questions, I hope people don't feel that when they email us, it's an issue for us. It's not. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to talk to you about what we want for all of our children. So thank you to our parents. I do want to remind our parents that we have that to only respond once to the questionnaire, and I think there might be a little glitch, but only once. If you have not received a questionnaire, please contact your building principal. And congratulations to Miriam Oki. Last time I was here, I said that we had a recipient, but I wasn't sure if she had been informed. And again, Miriam Oki is the New York PTA Susan Smaller Commitment to Advocacy Youth Award. So congratulations to Miriam, great job. And then this is where I'm gonna, that this is all about the kids. So I received a letter from a student, and I want to read it. It's a 5th grader from Pine Tree, and his name is Anthony Cuomo. So Anthony, hopefully you're not watching me because it's late, but you get to watch this later. Your letter is exactly what we want our kids to do, which is advocate for themselves. He said, in my life, I find that going to school is a great thing because it will teach the young students a lot. We should be in school 5 days a week. We would learn a lot more. It would feel like going to school as it was in 2019, 2018, and 2017, and so on. The average student brain would grow bigger. As you will read, you will see some reasons why we should go to school 5 days a week. Clearly, we would learn a lot more in school, full-time, 5 days. For this reason, we would learn more about science, literacy, essay, algebraic expressions, etc. We would learn more about how to be a better person by doing Choose Love. For example, we learn more about compassion and choose love. As you can see, there are many reasons why learning 5 days a week helps. It would feel like going to school as it was in 2019, 2018, 2017, and so on. For one thing, you would get on the bus without the mask. For now, we have to wear them. You would speak clearly without a mask, but for now, you have to wear them. For example, you would be able to sit next to each other, give hugs, and play touch involved games like tag and hide and seek. Not for now, sometime in the future, as you can see, with these things in place, it would feel normal school again. The average student brain would grow bigger, not literally. For instance, learning, studying in school will help the child's brain. They would grow emotionally with the contact with other kids. For example, students would have bigger grades than the average second, third, or fourth and fifth grader. As you can see, the average student brain would grow bigger as a result of being in school 5 days a week. Clearly, students need to be in school 5 days a week. It is important because the students need to be learning more in school. Clearly, this shows that being in school with other students and learning feels like normal school. Obviously, when you're in school, you learn more and your brain would grow bigger. You could ask Mrs. Rodriguez if students can be in school full-time 5 days a week so they can become better learners. So, Anthony, we are working to bring back our students 5 days a week, and I thank you for this letter because I think it's amazing, and you did an excellent job, and we should give Anthony a round of applause. And with that, I do say good night.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the high school staff for welcoming us back again. I know we were here quite a bit in the beginning of the year, and we're back for a few meetings as we have some of the budget presentations, so I appreciate that. I know it's a lot of work having us here. Thank you to the AV department, because it's long meetings, and I know that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I want to also highlight what Donna mentioned in regards to the board member packets. Please reach out to her if you're interested. I'm going to mention again, because it still is not too late to sign up, if you go back onto the archive section of our webpage on the homepage, there is a section there that mentions a workshop that is being held by Orange County BOCES. It's being held on March 20th and March 23rd, and it's basically a workshop where you can learn what it is about to be a board member. So that information is on our website for you. I want to thank the parents that got up and spoke. I know that, there's opportunities sometimes for us to be able to listen to what you have to say, and I know that I'm appreciative of the people that get up and speak, the people that reach out and email, and I'm appreciative to the administration for clarifying a lot of what gets put out. I think it's important, and I really do hope that message got put out there this evening. I want to say thank you for the presentations, because I do know that a lot of work goes into it, and that there's a lot of people that aren't sitting at this table, as Mr. Cahill mentioned, that also contribute to the presentation. So I just want to say thank you. I definitely appreciate it. I want to wish all the retirees a great and successful future. I hope they're going to be sitting on a nice warm beach somewhere having a nice drink. I want to welcome the new hires. Congratulations and welcome to Monroe-Woodbury. Congratulations to all the National Honor Society winners. I have to say that I can't wait to be able to attend these functions as a board member and see all of the people, but I have to guiltily say that I do like sometimes the virtual ones, because as a mom of 4 kids, I can't always attend things as a board member, but clicking on to the website is very, very convenient. So, but I do want to say congratulations to those students. That's excellent. I want to thank Lori Hawk and the athletic department, because although I wasn't doing it tonight, I promise, because it wasn't available, I do hope to be live streaming the soccer games. My daughter had a game this evening, so congratulations. Shameless plug to the varsity girls soccer team for a 4-0 victory tonight that I wasn't able to see, but I look forward to being able to see it on the live stream in the near future. So with that, I wish everybody a good night. I'm sorry.
Stacy, you didn't ask me about the OXPA update.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you want to speak about that, about how, and then our subsequent meeting with Senator?
Go ahead.
Well, the OXPA meeting was just basically a recap of everything that was discussed with our local senators and assemblymen, and then Stacy and I both met with Assemblyman Schmidt for a follow-up to see where we were at as far as the reopening and going from the 6 feet to the 3 feet, and some guidance on the election, and we're going to keep in touch with him.
Okay, great. I mean, we did. I just think we've been advocating, and I know that we've spoken to parents about advocating. We've had some discussion here this evening about the 6 foot to the 3 foot. A lot of that is obviously out of the district's control, so there's been a lot of advocation going up to the state level as to what we can possibly do and do it safely. So thank you, and with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss the discipline of a particular employee.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.